Never. The stalling is... Never have we ever stalled, because now, today, we are reading Lord of Mysteries, chapter 500. And what? 29? Bro, I'm not even in the right chapter. 529 is called Tacitness? Tacitness. I hope you guys are ready. You know who it is. You know what we're here to read. Thank you to our new members. I saw Cammy, and then I know before Cammy there was somebody else. I saw that earlier. Was it Luan? Thank you. Thank you, guys. Are you guys ready? If you like what you were going to see, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video. If you're on any Lord of Mysteries forums, share the greatness of this beautiful read-through that we will be done with in like 1 month's time. Hopefully. Knock on wood. But for now, let's keep reading. Oh, yeah. For all the people in China, what's up? Yeah, we saw the Billy posts at like 100,000 views. That was pretty cool. That was pretty sick. But for now, chapter 529 is called Tacitness. 48, I'm gonna put the volume down on my end just a smidge. 48 Acid Lemon Street, outside the wind of the Zur Inn, dressed in a thick jacket and pantaloons, blazoned in its return. By taking a detour, he clung to the corner of a wall, remaining motionless for a long time. He was hesitating on whether to take the opportunity to run away and to not face the terrifying madman German Sparrow again. Unlike the battle at Bansi Harbor, he was hiding on a rooftop far away this time. Is he thinking of running away? I mean, hold on. We gotta use Google Translate. Hopefully they were saying nice things. It kind of does break my heart. But it's also exciting that there's people like on the other side of the world that are watching. Unlike the Battle of Bansi Harbor, he was hiding on a rooftop far away this time. It allowed him to take in the entire battle zone. Therefore, while supporting German Sparrow and battling Brambless Henry, he finally saw the combat process of that crazy adventure, finally grasping his beyonder powers and traits. Paper figurine substitutes, phasing out from flames, psychic blast, a holy beam from the sun, domain shooting out and air bullets with his fingers, the ability to disguise himself into another person, as well as a glove that can change its appearance several times and devour Squall. His powers far exceed my imagination. There are few that... So even he's scared of him? Like, he's like, I can't take him on. And there are a few that can't be compatible with each other. This isn't something that can be displayed simply with the addition of 1 or 2 miraculous items to a sequence. Also, the sense of hunger that came from the depths of his soul explains something. That glove from... Oh, he knows who it is. Yeah, he knows where that glove came from, huh? That glove from the Vice Admiral Hurricane, Creeping Hunger. Captain has specifically reminded us that that glove can use the souls of many beyonders for grazing and thus use their powers. The Nits went through the thoughts he previously had and came to a final judgment. German Sparrow is the current owner of Creeping Hunger. He didn't feel any sensible belittlement simply because German had relied on a powerful mystical item to display such terrifying strength. Instead, he felt even more reverence for him. Oh, he's definitely going to be a Terror Club member. The reason for this was just one. A large part of using a mystical item to its fullest had to do with one's ability. Without sufficient strength and extraordinary combat experience, even with Creeping Hunger, German Sparrow wouldn't have been able to finish all Steel, Maveni, and Calm Squall within 10 seconds. 2. His captain, Vice Admiral Edwina Edwards, learned from the secret source that Vice Admiral Hurricane didn't lie at the hand of the Church of Storms, but instead he was quickly killed by a particular powerhouse while fleeing. Oh, so the Nits thinks it's him. Right? That has to be it. The Nits had no luck of understanding regarding the power of Vice Admiral Hurricane Quillingus. Back when he was still at his peak, he knew that the standing of a powerhouse which could easily finish him off was equal to that of the top pirate powerhouses. Furthermore, it would also be 2 of the most powerful and terrifying ones, the King of the Five Seas and Queen Mystic. Although there is a factor of surprise, it would just lower the valuation by a little. The person would be much weaker than the King of Immortality, and they'll be stronger than Admiral Heel and Admiral Blood. Creeping Hunger now belongs to German Sparrow. This means that he's either the one who killed Quillingus. I feel like that's what he thinks it is, right? Or there's a powerhouse figure at the level of 4 kings backing him up. No matter... Oh, so like he probably has somebody backing him up that gave him Creeping Hunger, i.e. a Zik, or he's like ignored by... No, I didn't ignore you. What city? I went to 2 places when I was in China. My bad. I didn't mean to ignore you. My bad. I was in... I went to Beijing, and then I went to Shanghai. And those were the 2 main places I went. Yeah, most people have backers supporting them. Yeah, those were the... So, yeah, I remember they mentioned this earlier. So far in, like, the Pyre world, like, if you're like, like, they think that Olger has a backer, right? Like, for him to have, like, the blue... the Blue Avenger, right? That was his ship. Like, for him to have, like, he must have a backer or someone, right? The King of the Pirates must be the letter D in their name. They probably do. You know what'd be funny? If there's like one of the King of Pirates and they do have the D in it, I think that'd be pretty cool. If they have the letter, the Blue Avenger. Bet. Thank you. All right, let's continue. He knew that the standing of a pirate house which could easily finish him off was equal to the top pirate powers. Furthermore, it would be two of the most powerful and terrifying ones. The King of the Five Seas. Furthermore, it would be two of the most powerful and terrifying ones. The King of the Five Seas and the Queen Mystic. Although there is a factor of surprise, it would just lower the valuation by a little. The person would be much weaker than the King of Immortality, and they'll be stronger than Admiral Hell and Admiral Blood. Creaking Hunger now belongs to German Sparrow. This means that he's either the one who killed Quinnagus, or there's a powerful figure at the level of the four kings backing him up. No matter which possibility it is, it's all more terrifying than I had originally expected. Danit's body tensed up. He really didn't want to face an adventurer who had crazy blood flowing in him. Phew. He heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that he had been hesitating here for too long and that he had taken the decision as soon as possible. German Sparrow knows how to divine, and he's rather confident in his abilities in this domain. With my shadow cloak in hands, escaping won't only fail, but it will also end up... Oh, I scrolled down too much. It would also end up infuriating him. I forgot what part OG went. I know he went, right? For like 2 weeks. But yeah, those are the two places I went. Shadow Cloak is a rare mystical item. Clenched his teeth, then it turned to the corner and went through the door in the hotel all the way to the luxurious suite. After a few seconds of careful waiting and observation, Danitz took out his key and opened the door. He saw that the room was dark, the gas walls lights hadn't been lit, and the not very bright light on the early morning was shining through their window onto German Sparrow, who was facing the door. The adventurer had changed back into his usual tweed black overcoat with dark trousers. He had a half-top hat in his hand, and his right foot was raised over his left thigh. What was that? Dude, thank you for following. The adventurer had changed back into his usual tweed black overcoat with dark trousers. He held his half-top hat in his hand, and his right foot was raised over his left thigh. He leaned back a little, his face obscured since his back was to the window. Only his dark brows... Oh, no. His dark brown eyes, which were exceptionally clear, watched the door with indifference and calmness. Danitz unconsciously lowered his head, laughed dryly, and said, "In accordance with your instructions, I circled to a few new agencies and wrote the information that Blazing Danitz killed Steel Mavetti, Blood, Brambles, Henry, and Squall on pieces of paper and threw them in." Yeah, why does it still loop the sound? You know what's funny? I don't know why my notifications loop. I have to go back in my settings and fix that, but I haven't gone back. I think maybe I put notifications on twice. Maybe? It's weird. I don't know why it does that. Of course, I mentioned having a powerful helper in this piece of news. He's a mysterious, unknown top adventurer and a veteran bounty hunter. Klein nodded and, revealing a polite smile, very good. With a sigh of relief, the Nitz looked around and saw the peacock blue carpet. He was stunned for a few seconds before asking in puzzlement, "What about the heads of Steel, Mavetti, and Henry?" Klein replied calmly, "Wasn't taken. You didn't take them." The Nitz exclaimed in astonishment. "Then what about our bounty?" "As long as they had the heads of Steel and Blood Brambles, he would be able to get the approximate bounty through people with connections. Although this would cost him 15-30% of the money received, he couldn't claim the bounty himself as a pirate. This was the only way, as the militaries of the churches used the bounty rewards to encourage pirates to kill each other, and didn't mean that they would turn a blind eye to a gift that comes walking through the door. They're just a gift to them." To Danit's surprise, German Sparrow, whose eyes were crazed with a desire for money, had actually not taken the heads of Steel and Blood Brambles, which meant that he had automatically given up on the bounty. Oh, so then anybody can just claim the bounty. Klein didn't answer him and pointed out the flying carpet on the ground. "You had helped in this. You have two choices. One is 3,000 pounds in cash, and the other is this flying carpet. You have 5 seconds to consider. Exiting this time will be considered as forfeiting. 3,000 pounds in cash or flying carpet. This flying carpet seems to only have the ability of suspension and flight. Furthermore, its speed isn't too fast. It's not too useful. No, at sea, to be honored, not for the sailor pathway, such items are very precious. At the very least, there's no need to worry about the aftermath of a ship being sunk." The Nitz was momentarily thrown into a dilemma. Then he heard German Sparrow's voice counting 3, 2... No, we just started the chapter. I stalled for a little bit. 3, 2, the Nitz heard skipping a beat, and he quickly said, "Flying carpet." Clyde nodded and said, "Okay." With the knowledge that German had great credibility, the Nitz finally relaxed before asking with a grumbling mumble, "Why did you count 5 4? Wasn't it supposed to be 5 seconds? Klein replied without changing his expression, Counted inwardly. The Nitz took a deep breath and grimaced. Klein slowly stood up, flicked his wrist, threw the hat from his hand, and left it hanging firmly on the rack before walking to his bedroom. Cathedral of Waves. Alger, who entered in the name of the coming from the morning prayers, met the diocese bishop, Chojo, and explained everything that had happened last night. The only thing that had been modified was that the sanguine anesthesia gas had been turned into a slumber charm of the Church of the what? Turned into a slumber charm of the Church of Evernight. Chojo nodded in approval. To be able to go deep into the enemy's lair and bear the risk of death for the sake of your faith, such as an act is worthy of praise. You are a true storm attendant. Last night we captured 5 Beyonders and killed 2 of them on the spot. As a result, this, Mavedi, Hendry, and Squall have also died. The heads of these 3 pirates will no longer appear, or they will be in your hands. So government's bounty will be ours. The total received reward will exceed more than 10,000 pounds in total, and you receive the bulk of it, which is 6,000. That's the Terror Club funds right there, which is 6,000 pounds. Do not refuse. The Lord has told us that those who fight for their faith must not be reserved. Holy Lords of Storms and excited, Olger pounded his left chest with his fist. Although he and the world didn't agree on how to split the spoils of war, he believed that the 2 of them had come to a tactic understanding. For example, they were not to interfere with each other when hunting pirates, as the bounty needed to be laundered through the church. The 2 of them would split it equally. As for the bounty offered by countries and organizations such as Intis and FASIC, Augur didn't hold any exceptions for them. This was because every time one exchanged for the bounty reward, one needed to hand over the corpse or head of the target. Therefore, only one entity could be chosen. Only those with a deep background and good relationships with the various organizations and counties could receive all of them. I'm sorry, can you guys still hear me, or did I mute myself? Oh, okay, no, we're good, right? Yeah, okay, we're good. As for the bounties offered, I think I found one place. Offered by... No, wait, we received them. Okay, I read that part. 3,000 pounds will belong to the world. If I were to lose 3,000 pounds at once or raise suspicion, yes, I'll have to find an opportunity to buy a mystical item. Such things are rare, so they're often overpriced, even more so when in times of great need. No one will doubt that I spent 5,000 pounds on a purchase that's worth 3,000 pounds. If I sell the items obtained from the old Quinn, the ones he had received at accounts would be squared. Alder quickly came with a follow-up solution. Knowing that he had 3,000 pounds waiting for him, Klein sat happily in the high-back chair of the fool and considered a serious question. That is, after grazing Steel Bavetti, he had to release his soul from keeping hunger, and as he promised... Yeah, which one is he going to release? Try turning it off and then back on. I'll look into it. Yeah, I don't know why it does that. Their Beyonder powers aren't quite useful. It's quite a pity to release them before finding a replacement, yes. Besides, I already released that faceless. There doesn't seem to be a need to do it this time. Feelings of hesitation and reluctance to part had stirred in Klein's heart as he was thrown into a dilemma. He was unable to make a decision. After a long time, he leaned back and exhaled. I can't deceive myself. He shook his head and laughed, turning relaxed for making up his mind. He decided to keep his promise and release the soul. The faceless from before had been released early because he wanted to receive some corresponding information. It was already an equal exchange. Which one should I release? Miss Justice bought the materials for a psychiatrist potion and a mystical item worth 5,500 pounds. Even if she's rich, her financial situation should be tight, so it wouldn't be appropriate to sell the psychiatrist's characteristic at this time. Yet, yes, she still owes she still owes my blessed 2,000 pounds and will repay the money in February or March. Klein rejected the idea and decided to release the nightmare. Oh, he releases the nightmare. As a former Nighthawk, he always had an inclination and felt gratitude based on his impressions and feelings towards Beyonders in this domain. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to make a choice in this situation without having any other factors to consider. So he's going to release the nightmare. Damn. Calming himself down, Klein picked up the human skin glove that he had previously brought above the gray fog. He closed his eyes and began to sense disordered souls. Without any hesitation, he released the nightmare. That's beautiful, dude. He literally released them. He's like, nah, it's okay. You can be free. Damn, man. You know what's crazy, though? You know what's actually crazy? Zavi, I forgot how to pronounce it. Zavi? What I find crazy, when we started reading season 1, I'm like, oh, my first impression was like, Dunn Smith is hands down the strongest character, you know? Before, like, we got more into the story, I was like, wow, he is literally so far, like, the strongest and coolest character. And now, like, his sequence alone is just something that Creeping Hunger can contain. And then use those abilities at random. I find that wild. Like, we've literally come such a long way. That's what I find so cool about this volume so far. And then Klein just keeps getting stronger and stronger. Alright, next chapter is called 530, and it is called Chronicles. The nightmare appeared by the side of the long bronze table. He was a man in his 30s with black hair and blue eyes. A long, blue eyes, just like Dunn. Thin face and obvious nasolabia folds. He had a beard that wasn't too thick by his mouth and chin. As the pain and distortion eased, he pressed his hand to his chest and gave a solemn bow. Compared to the faceless friend before, the nightmare was obviously not as muddle-headed and weak after being released. It was unknown if the Evernight pathway's enhancement to one soul was stronger than the one of the Seer's pathway, or if it was because of the grazing process had only happened recently. Klein sighed silently and began asking via spirit channeling, "Why did you die at the hands of Colingus?" The corner of the nightmare's mouth slightly curled up, revealing a bitter smile. He was a red glove. I'm a red glove from the Nighthawks? Hold up, man. Who could it be? I don't think we know him. I'm a red glove from the Nighthawks. I was tracking down a bunch of ancient chronicles and originated from a Balam Imperial tomb. We suspected that they were related to the reason for Dev's passing. I found out that a part of it might have fallen into the hands of a particular tycoon, so I led 2 companies of mine and boarded the ship he was on. Unfortunately, we were attacked by Quillingus' fleet just as we were about to launch an investigation. What happened to your companions? Klein subconsciously asked. The nightmare said in a slight pain tone, "We originally had the opportunity to leave and even kill Quillingus through our skillful teamwork, but our ship sank and we had to board a lifeboat instead. Everyone died. No, they were all killed in line of duty. May the goddess bless you." Klein drew a crimson moon inwardly. Damn, man. This made him more aware of the great differences between fighting at sea and fighting on land. Environmental factors were of critical importance. Beyonders not from the sailor pathway would be at a great disadvantage. If it wasn't because of the fact that the flying carpet had been huge, cumbersome, and slow, making him an easier target, Klein would have opted to keep it and give it the Nit's cash. Fortunately, I have the bladder of a Murloc. I can't find an artisan to create a mystical item that allows me to swim underwater. That was kind of loud. To swim underwater. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to find an artisan. Most of them are from the Church of the Gods of Steam and Machinery, and there aren't many unaffiliated ones. Otherwise, mystical items wouldn't be this rare. If push comes to shove, I'll get Mr. Hangman to help. Klein looked at the nightmare who had been killed in the line of duty and said softly as he leaned back, "What's your name? What unfulfilled wishes do you have?" Okay, hold up. Before we read, Dunn mentioned a few people. I forgot her full name, like Tron, something Tron. Like her dad, I think also died in the line of duty, but I don't think he was a red glove. They always just said Nighthawks. They never said red gloves. So maybe it's not related. Well, we'll find out. Let's find out. The figure of the nightmare was already slowly dissipating. When he heard Klein's question, he said with a smile, "My name is Davy Raymond. I lost my parents, wife, and siblings in the Black Magic Incident." Lore drop? The Black Magic Incident, leaving me with only one daughter, Nilu. She was born in 1330 as a very lovely girl, and I'm sorry to say that in order to investigate the truth over the Black Magic Incident, I joined the Nighthawks and later became a Red Glove. I didn't manage to spend time with her, making her lose her father alongside her mother. Yeah, my bad. Secatron. Megatron. Her name was definitely not Megatron, dude. I believe that the church was... Oh shit, that was such a funny icebreaker. That joke was bad timing because we're reading something tragic. I believe the church would definitely give her mind pension and secretly provide her a certain amount of help. I'm not worried about her life, but I only hope that she see her enter the hall of marriage under the witness of the goddess, to have her own family and not be lonely anymore. It's already the year 1350. She may have already had a marriage partner. Klein sighed wistfully and said, "Time flies." Davy Raymond muttered in response, "Tell her that all the corporates have been punished and that I died because of an accident. There's no need to hate anyone anymore. Tell her daddy loves her and daddy's very sorry." That's sad. Damn. His figure became more and more transparent. He wasn't about to disappear. Klein closed his eyes and asked, "Where does she live?" "What's the name of the tycoon who collected Dev's Chronicles?" "We live in Desi County, Conant City." It was a beautiful seaside city with rich rubber plantations growing nearby. If she hadn't moved, then she'll be living at 67 Red Indus Street. The tycoon's name is Ginny Nectar. He should have fallen into the hands of Quillingus as well. Before Davy Raymond finished speaking, his figure had already completely disappeared, leaving only a deep black gem-like object on the surface of his glove. Klein quickly watched the scene, and after a few seconds, he raised his right hand and tapped it 4 times clockwise on his chest. He then said in a deep voice, "If there's a chance, I will visit your daughter and see how she's doing." and the palace would look like a giant's residence. The fog was endless without any undulations and was entirely unchanged. Klein put away Davy Raymond's beyond characteristics, rubbed his forehead, and turned his attention back to Death's Chronicles. The Death pathway and the Evernight pathway can be switched at high sequences. There's nothing odd about the church sending personnel to investigate the corresponding chronicles. I wonder if Ginny Nectar is deaf or not. What? I wonder if Jimmy if he's part of the Deaf pathway or like Deaf itself. What? I imagine Def's real name is called Jimmy. I wonder if Jimmy Nectar is deaf or not. I'll need to find out if he has already perished in a tragic case, and then the thing has fallen in Quillinga's hands, then will require me to investigate the pirate side. Quillinga's crew now belongs to Vice Admiral Element Tracy. As it involves death, it might be able to help Mr. Zicline decide to check it out and passing himself. As if he had encountered any difficulties, he could write directly to the powerhouse. After clearing his mind, he quickly returned to the real world and used a ritual to summon Creeping Hunger back. After everything was done and seeing that it was already getting late, he gave up on an idea of trying to catch up on his sleep. He decided to summarize the experiences and lessons from last night's operation. The biggest lesson for Klein was that he had overestimated the patience of the mandated punishers. Voice. If there's a chance, I will visit your daughter and see how she's doing. Why did it repeat the same page? The biggest lesson for Klein that was he had overestimated the patience of the mandated punishers. He had originally hoped that even if there had been an accident in the beginning of the mandated punishers would have been able to restrain him and wait for the real target, the real protagonist, Steel Mavedi, to appear. When that happened, they would have definitely used a sealed artifact which can pull many people into Dream, restraining all the unaffiliated Beyonders who had involved themselves in the Blitz. As for me, due to my uniqueness, I would be able to detect that I am asleep and be able to forcibly escape. Then I could have dealt with Stu Mavetti and his helpers in a composed manner, completing an achievement of an instant kill and also bring 2 corpses along with me. So was this like his original plan? The chap is messed up. Yeah, it was weird. It like looped for a second. Then I could have dealt with Steel Mavetti and his helpers in a composed manner, completing an achievement of an instant kill and also bringing 2 corpses along with me. Yet, just as the incident happened, that bunch of irascible bros stormed in. They didn't even leave any backup teams to watch out for any of the contingencies. At the very most, they would have let the wielder of the sealed artifact stay behind on the periphery with 1 or 2 guards. The more Klein thought, the more he was at a loss of whether to laugh or cry. If it wasn't because of Steel Mavetti's group of pirates who were more cautious and had at least 2 Beyonders assigned, as well as their puppets and zombies who stopped the mandated punishers that might have pursued them, Klein would have likely found himself in a situation going 2 against 5. If that happened, he would have chosen to give up and directly engage in a strategic shift. Oh. What made Klein more satisfied was that he had done a pretty good job of making specific preparations. This was the professional habit of a magician, because he had long known from Miss Sharon and Merrick the traits of the 5 sequences in the mutated pathway. Klein was well aware that Steel Mavetti, who had gone through the lunatic phase, could still use... What? I read that wrong. Could use irrational factors. Any Beyonder description and influence on his mind. He had very strong resistance in this aspect, therefore he gave up the thought of using Psychiatrist, Dragon, Might, and Frenzy, as well as Nightmare, which was clearly weaker than the mandated Punisher's sealed artifact, and he instead focused on the Interrogator Psyche Piercing of the Priest of Light's purification powers. Psychic piercing wasn't a Beyonder power that disrupted one's thoughts and affected one's soul, but it means to directly attack the spirit body, and in essence, the other effect acted on one's body of heart and mind and targeted the soul's body. There was a clear difference between the two. If any part of the combo failed to chain in any way, Steel Mavetti would have been able to recover, making it impossible for me to kill him quickly. Really? And in the environment that would spell failure, yes, I've also used the pathway traits of losing themselves to their desires, making it easy to grasp their emotions. I believe that once they suffered a psychic attack, there wouldn't be a high chance of them counterattacking in madness without any consideration of anything else. In fact, the safest way of dealing with a zombie is to set up the matchsticks of setting up matchsticks or have the nits. I'll use Flaming Jump and Light of Holiness, kiting Mavetti. He's gonna kite them. Was Prisoner mentioned? Prisoner. Well, we'll see. We'll see how Prisoner holds up in the future. Mr. Beast is deaf. Mistranslation is whether he's... Oh, it's whether he's dead or not. Okay, thank you. That makes more sense, Kami. I thought, like, what if, like, Jimmy is deaf? It's like, what? No, wait, I think that's wrong. Killing Mavetti, I'll make him want to battle but be completely unable to reach his opponent. He wouldn't escape even if he wanted to. Just send a fireball and I'll catch up to him. Unfortunately, it's a waste of time and the situation didn't allow for it. Klein sighed, took out his pocket watch, snapped it open, and checked the time. Seeing that it was almost 9 o'clock in the morning, he turned to handle up the door and was walked out of the bathroom. At this moment, the Nitz was lying in a reclining chair, producing snores that sounded like a steam engine was operating in the room. It was quite alert, opening his eyes and sitting up as soon as Klein came out. "Are you going out?" the Nitz asked when he saw German Sparrow take off his hat from the coat rack. Yes, Klein maintained his persona and didn't explain that he was attempting to act by helping someone confess. "What about me? Silmavetti and his men are almost all dead, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Even if the newspaper doesn't publish the news, I can spread it myself. There will be idle pirates and adventurers who will use it as material for bragging, spreading the matter to the sea, and would end up informing Captain. That bunch of dog shit can't be a what? What is with his language? We gotta work on your vocabulary, Danitz. That bunch of doggy do can't do a thing aside from drink and brag, but even so, and they still have their uses." Danitz thought for a moment, then he asked, while secretly feeling a sense of fear, "Mr. Sparrow, can I leave now?" Klein revealed a faint smile. "You have always been free." "That's right, I wasn't caught by him this time. I was just looking for help. I have always been free." The Nitz was stunned for a moment, then he was delighted. But right at this moment, he heard German Sparrow's voice lightly fleeting towards him. "But that ends now?" What? The Nitz looked confused. It took him no less than 3 seconds to understand what German Sparrow meant. He had been captured again. Oh, I fucking love Klein, dude. He's so funny in this volume. He's such a badass, but he's also so fucking funny, dude. "Why?" the Nitz asked angrily and aggravated. Klein put on his hat and said in a low voice, "I want to meet your captain." The Nitz widened his eyes, stood up abruptly, and shouted out, "What do you want?" "This fellow is a little too agitated." Klein replied calmly, "I have some things to ask her." I'm like, yeah, bro, chill. Oh, that was the end of the chapter. All right, next chapter. All right, chapter 531 is called Great Acting. He had some things to ask Captain. The Nitz frowned. I lied. Did I update it? Yes, it is updated. How many chapters are we doing? We're probably gonna stream for a few hours, so I think we're good right now, Romero. Yeah, we're definitely. We're shooting for 10. We'll see. We'll see if we can hit 10. But I think we might be able to hit 10 today. Great acting. He has some things to ask Captain. The Nitz frowned as he watched Germ. It's gonna be funny if I don't read 10 chapters after saying we're reading 10. The Nitz frowned as he watched German Sparrow leave the room, unsure what his real motive was. What is this fellow really after? Money, riches, but he had the time to take away the heads of Steel Mavetti and Blood Brambles Henry to exchange for literally 10,000 pounds in bounty rewards. Yes, even after paying any compensations, it will still be 7,000 to 8,000 pounds, yet he didn't do. Moreover, he generously shared the spoils of war with me. That is very contradictory. When he first heard that I was blazing the nest, his first reaction was to call me a 3,000 pound bounty. In Captain's words, this isn't scientific. Why would he deliberately give up the bounty? Unless he has a better way to claim it safely, or he had specifically left it for someone. Yes, he had been prepared for the appearance of the mandated punishers. He has his own connections and information channels. This way, everything can be explained. There's also the possible existence of the demigod that killed Quillingus. There's a powerful and secretive organization behind German Sparrow. Okay, hold up. He's actually kind of smart. 10 hours? 10 chapters. He's like, yo, 10 hours today? Fuck, 10 chapters. We'll see. We'll see how we're doing. Let's see, maybe 20 or 30. We'll see. There's also the possible existence of the demigod that killed Quillingus. Here, there's a powerful and secretive organization behind German Sparrow. Once he joins the Terror Club, he's going to be able to find out who it is. Shocked by his own conjecture, Danitz instinctively tried to use his body language to express his feelings, but he forgot that his left arm was still fractured. He immediately grimaced in pain. This made him feel even more terrified. He didn't want his captain to meet such a dangerous and crazy fellow. He even suspected that German Sparrow's real motive was his captain's 26,000 pound bounty. In a duel, that lunatic might not necessarily win against Captain, and there's still the first mate, second mate, third mate, and a few boatswains. But he has a terrifying organization backing him. You want to hurt Captain over my dead body. The Nitz puffed out his chest, raised his neck, and was filled with a strange sense of self-sacrifice. He ran a hand through his hair, gave a long grunt, and said to himself, I'll make further observations. Perhaps German Sparrow really only has questions that he wants answered. Subconsciously, he looked around and found both the flying carpet and the shrouded cloak they weren't missing. In other words, German Sparrow left the things that belong to me behind. Isn't he afraid that I'll take this opportunity to escape? Or did he steal my hair that makes it easy for divination? I was like, why would he steal his hair? No, he's a crazy guy. Even if he wishes to use my hair, he wouldn't just walk over and extend his hand to pull one out. It's impossible for him to do it secretly, right? There's a powerful and secretive organization behind him. Perhaps at this moment, there are people from that organization secretly monitoring me. It's like everybody's watching him. They're waiting for me to leave, waiting for me to seek out Captain. How insidious. He's so paranoid, dude. German Sparrow must have gone out on purpose. Oh my god. Now he's overthinking like Alger, bro. Alger's always fucking like... Alger's always overthinking, overanalyzing. That's exactly what the Nits is doing now. From one good pirate to another good pirate, right? German Sparrow must have gone out on purpose. The Nits felt that he had grasped the truth of the matter thanks to his experience and wisdom. With good reason? Yeah, that's true. But like right here, grasp the truth of this matter thanks to his experience and wisdom. He paced back and forth before sitting back in his reclining chair. He then thought with a silent, mocking smile, I'm not leaving. I want to see what you can do. I will not bring danger to Captain. 3:15 in the afternoon, Saimid Island. This island was also part of Roasted Archipelago, but it was the furthest from the City of Generosity, Bam. It took nearly 5 hours of linear to reach it. On the way, Klein bought a suit with local characteristics and a small suitcase to replace the clothes he changed out of for a total of 14 solely. They weren't even worth a pound. Ow, my teeth hurts, man. It's really cheap. It's just changed compared to a complete suit. Wearing pantaloons, a thick brown jacket, and a light brown cape, Klein disembarked from the liner with a native face that didn't stand out, and he entered some of the old ports of Saimid Island. He had spent time buying clothes and changing his appearance, causing him to miss the 9 o'clock ferry and be put in a situation where he could only take the ferry at 10. Thinking of the expenses he had to pay for this acting, he couldn't help but calculate his current financial situations. The faceless characteristic was sold for 3,825 pounds. The pirate bounties net me 3,000 pounds, although I haven't received the 6,825 pounds. I basically include it into my budget as long as Mr. Hangman doesn't get exposed. The leftover cash from Donna and company's gratuity add up to 255 pounds in bits and pieces. I found 26 pounds, 11 solely, and 8 pence from Steel Movetti's body. Yes, there's still 5 gold coins as reserves. I haven't spent much money recently, only spending slightly more than pounds in... I can't read! Only spending slightly more than a pound in total. This is something to be happy about. With that, I'll have 7,110 pounds. Moreover, I still have the Nightmare Beyond characteristic and the Murloc bladders. They're still worth something. On second thought, I earned 3,000 pound bounty alongside a Zombie Beyond characteristic. The ladders were 3, the 100 pathways like that. The Nits is loyalties for good reason. I go slumber. Good night, everyone. All right. Peace, OG. We'll see you soon, okay? Dude, thank you guys for tuning in for a little bit. I lost my place. With that, I'll have 7,110 pounds. Moreover, I still have the Nightmare Beyond characteristic and the Murloc bladder. They're still worth something. On second thought, I earned 2,000 pound, a 3,000 pound bounty alongside a Zombie Beyond characteristic. The ladders were 3,000 pounds to 5,000 pounds. That is to say, I earned about 7,000 pounds. This is only from Steel Movetti's Blood, Brambles, Hendry, and Squall. Besides, there is quite a lot of waste. Indeed, hunting pirates is quite a good job. It can administer justice, punish the evil, protect the weak and innocent, and also make me rich overnight. So this is a win-win for him. He literally checks off all his boxes. Klein subconsciously turned his head to the side, only to see that the color of the seawater was much clearer than that of Bam's. It was as if the seawater was huge, green, sparkling gem reflecting golden rays under the sunlight. Sure enough, it's not without a reason that generations after generations of adventurers have gone out to sea to search for weather. Even if I deduct the remnant spirituality of ancient raves, eyes for a 6-winged gargoyle, spring water from the Sonia's Islands, golden spring, and other supplementary ingredients of a marionette test. Oh, you're right. This is the proper translation. Marionette test. I was like, what the fuck is this marionette test? Yeah, it's not Nimble Right Masters. A marionette. Sequence 5 is marionettist, right? Got it. The money I have left will be enough to allow me to buy a decent manor here in Desi Bay in the southern continent's colonies and in the non-metropolitan areas. Lowen's countryside is said to be very beautiful, and it turns out that I'm really unable to return. I can consider settling down in a similar place. Yes, they still have a 10% stake in Backland Bike Company, and my future returns won't be low. With confidence, Klein straightened his back and thought about the future. After letting his thoughts wander, Klein began to think about the more realistic question, which was whether he should sell the Nightmare Beyond characteristic, find an opportunity to return to the Church of the Evernight, or create a mystical item with it through an art. I think he should turn it into a mystical item, right? He should probably turn into a charm. Evening. German going at sea for treasures parts. A true treasure hunter? Exactly, dude. Good morning and good afternoon for everybody that's joining in right now. It depends on the situation. The ideal solution will be to sell it to the church. The martyr Klein, who had taken 2 potions from the Nighthawks, thought with uncertainty. Look at him. He's paying it forward. At the same time, he hoped that Little Sun would soon reach Sequence 7 and be qualified to gain clearance of the methods used to remove the mental corruption from a bionic characteristic. Oh, the one from Rosalgo, right? Or Rosalgo, right? Yeah, from him. I almost forgot his name for a sec. Only 10%, and it's probably still going to be a lot of money, dude. When bikes go big in Backland, that 10% is going to be like 10,000, 20,000 pounds. Maybe 100,000 pounds. Rosalgo. Yeah, back then said Nimble Right Mess Rozongo, but no, it's not Nimble Right. It's Marionettist Rozongo. Got it. As his thoughts, as a matter of releasing the Priest of Light from the glove, he wasn't in a hurry. Little Sun had just received the potion formula for Sequence 7, so he had no need for it at the moment. He would have to wait for a long time, and the powers of a Priest of Light was very effective in dealing with a pirate like Admiral Blood in a way that was far more potent than the Sun Brooch. As his thoughts slowly settled down, Klein entered the small port town. The place was basically filled with natives. The skin was nearly bronze, and their black hair had slight natural curls. Their body emitted a scent that was derived from the prolonged contact with spices. After changing his appearance and asking about Randy's situation as if there were any news of Went's death, Klein found a secluded corner. He wiped his face with his hand, turning his face into a tall, thin Went with rather distinct facial features. He carried his suitcase and circled around the town to its border, and it was then that he saw the winery run by Randy's family. The girl with flaxen-colored hair could no longer be called a young girl. She had obviously matured a lot compared to what Went remembered. She was sweeping the entrance, and there was no one... Wait, who? It was then that he saw winery run by Randy's family? The girl with flaxen-colored hair could no longer be called a young girl. Who are we talking about? She was sweeping the entrance and there was no one around. Phew. Klein took a deep breath and slowly let it out, feeling as though he was placed in a very difficult position. As a powerful keyboard warrior, he knew about the theories like method acting and experimental acting, but he lacked further understanding. He could only try to guess at Went's mood and performance in this kind of scenario. Finally, he closed his eyes and walked over. The girl that the guy who... forgot his name. Oh shit, he found her quickly. Doman from the well, it's been like 20 years, right? So okay, there you go. Thank you guys. Okay, so it's the nightmare guy's daughter. Got it. Finally, he closed his eyes and walked over. Rani looked up when she heard footsteps, finally identifying the visitor. She opened her mouth slightly and allowed a half-surprised exclamation before saying with a straight face, "Why are you suddenly back? Remember, you're just acting." Klein revealed a smile. Oh? We're cooked? Wait. This is not the nightmare guy. Who is it? Wait, hold up. Wait, he's using his faceless abilities. Remember, you're just acting. Klein revealed a smile. I came to bid you farewell. He spoke in a local dialect with somewhat nondescript Bayam accent. Hold up. Whoops. Shit. Just keep reading. Okay, let's keep reading. The language of the Roasted Archipelago was also derived from an ancient Phasic and belonged to another variant. As a half-historian, Klein was able to master it easily, and it only took him a short time to master it. Farewell. Rani asked, slightly surprised. Klein turned his head, looked to the side, and smiled. I'm going to chase after a treasure, and I don't know when I'll be able to come back. When the time comes, I'll appear with a great deal of money. I'll buy a manor in the suburbs, plant some rubber trees, and set up a vineyard. Have my own mill, wine cellar, blacksmith shops, and let the air be filled with some scent of all kinds of spices. Then I'll buy a few slaves and hire some more servants, just like those masters. But I'll still be short of one thing. He overcame his goosebumps that were about to form on his skin, and he turned to look at Rani in the eye. I still lack a wife and a mistress for the manor. The man that died because of the corruption of his necklace. Oh, yeah. Oh, him. With all the mushrooms, he loved the girl and regretted never telling her. Yeah, he said he regretted never, saying I loved her. Of course, Easy would read only misinformation. It got to us. We fell for it. Was that I thought it was unhinged for a second. It's not unhinged, right? Oh, okay, never mind. I thought unhinged got me for a sec again. I still like a wife and a mistress for the matter. Randy, I like you. I wish to marry you. The reason I said it out loud today isn't to get an answer, but because I'm afraid that I will never have the chance to tell you again. After listening quietly, Randy suddenly scolded angrily. Went, you're a coward? Ah, this reaction isn't right. Klein deliberately revealed a surprised expression. Randy suppressed her voice and said, 3 years ago, 3 freaking years ago, I was already prepared to head to the BAM with you. Yet you didn't say anything in the end. You coward, you chicken. What's the use of telling me now? You're going to the sea soon and you may never come back. The more she spoke, the more agitated she became. You said it out loud and became happy. You have no regrets. But what about me? I have to constantly think about you returning and live on in pain, you selfish bastard. She weaved the broom in her hand and swung it towards Went. Ah, she's mad. Klein knew that the real Went would have hit the broom away, hugged the girl, and told her that he wasn't going out to sea again. But he couldn't do that. Imagine he did that. But he couldn't do that the same. He had to almost stuttered. He had to pretend to be chased away pathetically, running all the way to a nearby alley. There he hit his head against the wall while silently cursing himself. It was too fucking awkward. This is too fucking awkward. Randy went back to the door, picked up the broom, and crouched down. Aw, her face was ashen. It was unknown what she was thinking about. Vaguely, she heard a sound and she fell asleep. Aw. After using the charm, Klein turned around and nudged Randy, who was sitting on the ground while leaning against the wall. Then he quickly left the area, hiding in the distance to peep at the results. Randy quickly woke up and realized that she had fallen asleep without knowing it. Everything that had happened just now had appeared like a dream. She remained sitting there motionless for quite a while. Suddenly, she lowered her head and let out a sharp curse that seemed to come from the depths of her throat. Went, you selfish bastard. Sigh. Klein went from a tiny sensation of digesting his potion. Sigh. He changed his appearance and left the place. He would have to spend the night of Samin Island, and there were no Linner's heads for Bam until the morning. Damn. Almost. We almost stuttered that. We almost butchered. That's kind of sad. Klein is transformed into that guy. It's kind of funny how he acknowledges like, oh, this is such an awkward conversation. But he still did it. And you know what? Through that awkward conversation, he was able to slightly digest his potion, which is, it's still a win at the end of the day. I mean, RIP Went, right? That was a really bad way to go out. But hey, man, he helped him digest his potion. Am I right, guys? Or am I right? Chapter 532, before I forget to update this part, is called Lord. I wonder if doing it with someone and being like the person so much you can't tell how much potion do you think you will get. Wait, what? Oh, I almost hit stop stream. But next chapter, it's called Lord Caucasian, right? After changing his face and turning into one of the 2 main streets, Klein went straight to the green mailbox and took out a letter he had prepared long ago from his pocket. This was a death notice he had forged as an imitation of an official police document. It was sent to the sergeant of the town of Samin Harbor. It was about the sudden death of the local resident Went and Bayham. When deciding to do the acting, Klein had worked out a plan to keep things on track and not cause irreparable damage to the girl Rainey. His plan was to use the slumber charm to camouflage a real acting as a dream. This way, if Randy had no love for Went, he expected her to directly reject his confession. After hearing about the other party's death, she wouldn't feel any guilt and at most some fear. In response, damn, that was kind of smart. In response to this, she could effectively be placated by going to church to pray and confess. If Randy also liked Went and responded to the confession, then the dream would give Klein a chance to extract himself from the situation. The notification of Went's death would kill Randy's expectations, and it would have too negative an impact on her future life. But even so, it's still a bit cruel. No matter what kind of woman she is, facing the situation of a guy confessing to her in her dreams after his death is definitely going to be heartbreaking. She wouldn't be able to recover for a long time. That is true. Well, if I hadn't done anything and went to the news of Went's death reached her, Randy would definitely feel very sad, even if it might have not been that serious. However, that knot in her heart would never be able to be mended, and she would be stuck wondering the rest of her life whether Went had gone out on an adventure to pursue his and her future, or if he simply didn't like her. That's really deep. It's not a bad way to end things like this. Once she has overcome her pain, she will carry the gentleness of having been truly loved once while leading her future life. Regardless to forcibly interfere in the lives of others for acting. having an impact on an innocent person's life to a certain degree, even though I'm using the excuse of fulfilling a wish, is not truly a kind of thing to do. Just like Roselle said, the further one proceeds in the beyond pathway, the more twisted and evil it feels. The acting method might not be the catalyst. All I can do is try my best to minimize such effects. After sending the letter, Klein exhaled with a native face that didn't stand out. He walked to the only inn in town. Along the way, he summed up his previous experience, which was that disguising yourself as someone else and obtaining feedback was likely a main clause of the faceless principles. Second only to you can disguise yourself into anyone, but you are ultimately yourself. If it were any other faceless, they would have blocked out information about Wednesday for the sake of this role. They wouldn't have agreed to Randy's confession and spent 1 or 2 years in a relationship with her, marry her, and have children of her, and then to not be bound by the various relationships in this identity. Wait, what? If it were any other faceless, was that what? That's exactly what we were talking about right now, right? Like, hypothetically, if Klein did that, he would, like, low-key digest it a lot. If it were any other faceless, they would have blocked out information about Wednesday for the sake of this role. They would have agreed to Randy's confession and spent 1 to 2 years in a relationship with her, marry her and have children with her, and then to not be bound by the various relationships in this identity, remember who they were and leave coldly. That is messed up, dude. If there was no exposure during this process, the potion would be mostly digested, but I really can't do it. It's just completely against my conscience. I can only try to push the envelope. Klein sighed, inexplicably afraid. He shook his head and thought in a silent, self-deprecating manner. Beyonders not only have to constantly fight against the threats of madness, but also fight against all kinds of evil thoughts, as well as the corruption that pulls one down and can cause one to fall if they aren't careful. That's scary, dude. And a bit insane to have a child. And then you just leave them and you never go back. Even so, at the end of the day, one might still be corrupted by the abyss, becoming a monster that one swears to get rid of. Speaking of that, even so, at the end of the day, one might still be corrupted by the abyss. We're talking about the abyss corrupting people, and we know Roselle saw the abyss, and we still don't know anything about his death. But we know he's been coincidentally murdered or assassinated. I don't know, man. Become a monster that one swears to get rid of. Sigh. Choked on my saliva. Suppressing his thoughts, Klein stepped into the inn and said to the boss behind the counter, an ordinary room. The thin boss looked up and gave a glance, saying, "A valid ID certificate. How can a face I just came up with have one?" Klein smiled in embarrassment. "I forgot to bring it." "Then you cannot stay here. This is the rule of our towns." The boss once again lowered his head and calculated his income and expenditure for that day. Klein took out a sullen note and pushed it over as if nothing had happened. The boss's eyes suddenly widened. No, put it away. I don't walk to be locked up by the sergeant. Get out, you dirty bastard with no proof of identity. Klein was thrown out of the inn in shock, unable to believe that the omnipotent entity known as money had just lost its power. After a few seconds of silence, he turned into an empty alleyway, turning back into German Sparrow with stark facial features. Klein returned to the inn, tapped on the corner and said lowness and backland X in a room. The boss looked up and immediately put down the things in his hand. He then stood up and nodded with a smile. Okay. Do you need a room with a view of the sea or something quieter? He switched to the clumsy lowness that had a thick accent that resembled that of the land of spices with no further mention of identification. This really is a pragmatic world. Klein silently lampooned and politely responded, "Quiet." Why can't I say okay? Oh, was a word like muted? Yes. Immediately, the boss responded hurriedly. Did I miss a part? This is a really pragmatic world. Klein silently lampooned and politely responded, "Quiet." Yes. Immediately, the boss responded hurriedly. Then he called an attendant, took out the keys, and led Klein personally to the second floor. Damn, just like that. "Sir, how many days will you be staying here?" "It's one solely 5 pence a night." Just a night. Klein couldn't stand the enthusiasm, so he answered succinctly. Wow, I can't read. At the wind of the Azure Inn, his luxurious suit with the knits was 5 solely at night. Without a doubt, the room the boss had chosen was clean and tidy, and there was no traces of usual humidity in the harbor inn. Klein looked around and nodded in satisfaction. "Excellent. It's my honor." The boss flattened with obvious fear. Klein put down his luggage, rested for a while, then he got up and went back down to the ground floor to settle his dinner. Look at that. And just like that, he got a room. Beside the counter tables were arranged messily on the first floor. This was the greasy layers on the surface, and a fireplace burning was in the corner, giving off light and heat. The roasted archipelago was slightly to the south of the lowest temperatures in winter and was only 10 degrees Celsius. I forgot what's the difference in Fahrenheit. Sorry. It's my American brain over here. However, for the 70, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. However, for the locals, this was still cold enough that they need a fire to warm them up. Klein randomly found a seat and sat down, ordering a local specialty of grilled meat and spiced mushroom soup, with the main dish being potato bread. While he was waiting, he swept his gaze over to the customers inside the restaurant. His gaze then instinctively landed on the lady. The lady had a head of simple tied-up black hair and a pair of distinctive greenish-gray eyes. Her appearance was the type of that one would never get sick of easily. Wait, what? Her appearance was the type that one would never get sick of easily, and the more he looked at her, the more intrigued he became. She was obviously not a native, but she was wearing a man's shirt and a thick tan jacket. Her body had a round-brimmed hat with a depression in the middle. This was one of the more common adventurer outfits out at sea. At her table, the other three men were the same, and they clearly appeared to have been exposed to the elements. Klein had never hid his appreciation of beautiful ladies, but his attention wasn't drawn to her by her appearance. The sea had a strong sense of discrimination against females. Women who could achieve a certain status among adventurers or pirates were either very scheming, very powerful, or both. There were people that one needed to be cautious of and worry about. Their boots have some fresh mud on them. Did they just come back from the forest? How they really are adventurers. Klein made a preliminary judgment based on some cues. If those four adventurers came by ferry from Bayam, even if they had previously stepped on sewage or mud, the traces would have already been dried up. Furthermore, as the town hadn't rained in the past 2 days, overall the roads were quite clean with only some dust. So he's like, where the mud come from? You could never make me use Fahrenheit instead of Celsius, even with this torture, even with torture. I lost my place. Furthermore, as the town had... Oh, right here, some dust. Eliminating the two possibilities, it can only be explained that they had returned from a trip to the woods on the outskirts of the town. Klein had heard that many adventurers went deep into the primitive forests of the colonial islands in search of abandoned, forgotten pagan temples or altars, which often contained gold and jewels of ancient worships, but were later buried for various reasons in a place that no one knew of. In the bars of the island, there was no shortage of legends that someone had managed to make a fortune overnight on adventure into the woods. There might be evil spirits lingering in those places. It would be better to hunt the pirates, for one to at least acquire the relevant information in advance. Klein retracted his eyes and concentrated on waiting for the food. The 7 churches classified the various goods believed by the colony's primitive faiths as evil spirits. Klein believed that some of them were natural spirits. After a while, the specialty grilled meat was served. It had been sliced into many smaller pieces and strung onto a wooden stick. The surface was smeared with a reddish-brown sauce. The fragrance was rich and the color was alluring. It looked a little like the kebabs from my previous life. In Lowen, they're usually roasted as huge chunks of meat. Only after the meat is roasted will the chief slice up the meat. The method used here makes the flavor infuse the meat better. Are we reading like a food series now? Because this sounds really good. It sounds appetizing. Klein picked up the wooden stick and bit down on a piece of meat. He felt the meat juice slightly overflow, and there was a hint of sweetness in the salty fragrance. It's my type. He nodded in satisfaction. Klein enjoyed the meal and even tasted a local Gurney sap, a special beverage like the lemon with sugar and milk. He went back to his room because he had been hunting the night before. He hadn't slept at all. He washed up early, put on the fireplace, and got into bed. Sleeping too early meant one problem. He would wake up in the middle of the night to pee. Klein's dreams was interrupted. He opened his eyes and slowly accumulated the courage to lift his quilt. In the middle of the night, Salmon was about 8 to 9 degrees Celsius. Bro, what is that in Fahrenheit? 60 degrees? 50 degrees? Oh, to whenever just saying about cleaning food. That is true. He's been cooking and eating food from like the very beginning, dude. And it was enough to make it feel sufficiently cold. After lying still for a while, Klein stretched out his arm and slightly withdrew it. He contemplated for a few seconds before reaching out his hand again and picked up the sun brooch from his bedside table. Although he's using the sun brooch to stay warm because he's cold. Although it only provided the feeling of a hot summer on a spiritual level, and it didn't produce any actual heat, it could at least deceive him into thinking it wasn't cold. Klein got out of bed and headed for the washroom. He narrowed his eyes to ease the pressure on his lower abdomen. When he was done, he pulled up his pants and was about to wash his hands when his spiritual perception was triggered. Klein frowned slightly and looked at the vent in the bathroom. Suddenly, something black and slippery dropped and hung there. It was a venomous snake extending its forked tongue. Whoa, hold up, he hasn't washed his hands. Klein was startled. He opened his mouth and shouted, bang. The snake was miserably hit and it was split in half. What happened? Klein stared at it for a few seconds, seeing no further movement. He walked out of the bedroom and pulled a gold coin in front of his pocket. Wait. The coin is dirty. Wait. He has to wash his hands, dude. He hasn't washed it yet. Mr. 4,200 pounds. Oh, we got a big shot. Oh. I'm gonna read this whole chapter thinking why he hasn't washed his hands. There's danger in the end. Klein softly chatted the divination statement, entered cognition, and then flipped a gold coin. Now the gold coin is dirty. Clang. A faint but crisp sound echoed in the quiet room. The gold coin tumbled and fell, landing in Klein's palm. You know it. It was tails indicating a negative response. No danger. With a frown, Klein looked around and pulled out a bottle of instinct replenishing essential oils. Now the essential oils are dirty. Repelling essential oils from his coat and coat rack. Now the coat rack is dirty. And his coat is dirty. He sprinkled a circle around them. Ooh, now that's dirty. Then he quickly took 4 steps counterclockwise, entering the gray fog to make a divination for confirmation. In about 10 seconds, he received a revelation. There was still no danger. Returning. Oh, hold up. So does that mean him going above the gray fog? Is like he's like, are his hands spiritually dirty and now he's like dirtying everything else? Okay, I'll drop it, but food for thought. Returning to the real world, like, does him being unhygienic in the real world transfer to above when he goes above the gray fog, right? Like, is the table dirty now? Like, or is Klein gonna like notice that the bro is cooking weirdly today? Like, hold up. So like now that the table is dirty, is Alder gonna be like, huh, the table is dirty? Does the fool want me to know that, or was that an accident? Does the fool want me to clean the table for him, or is this a test? Ill game? Yeah, like, is it a test for me to say something that the table is like? Will I pass this test if I stay quiet and say that the table isn't dirty? Or like, Alger is like, what is his scheme? You know, knowing Alger, I feel like that's like a he would definitely say that. Returning to the real world, Klein shook his head, put on the gold coin and bottle, wore his coat, trousers, and boots before sitting at the edge of the bed, leaned back against the pillow, and he placed great caution on his turn of events. Bro, sometimes I get off work covered in mud, dirt, but still beer, hand, and sandwich. I respect that, Unhinged. I respect that. He still remembered his seer principles, especially the one about divination is not all powerful. So even if the answers he received indicated it was safe, he didn't dare to relax and return to slumber. This isn't to say that he didn't believe in the Grey Fog's ability to shield him from interference. That's happened before. Where he, well, at least when he hasn't been able to divine when like a grade 0 object isn't, like whenever it comes to the quill, he can't even perceive it, but like he knows something is off. So I mean, it could work the other way around. But rather that there was too many possibilities. His divination statement might not be too accurate enough to cover them all true, resulting in his hidden misinterpretation. He already had a guess about what had just happened. It was that the 4 adventurers in a restaurant had indeed found an abandoned and forgotten ancient temple in the primitive forest of the Klein is too smart, man. Forest on the same mean island. They had attained wealth for cultured relics, but they had also stirred the barely survivable evil spirits, causing them to be plagued by evil thoughts and curses. Oh, smart. Good call. Time ticked by, and Klein suddenly felt a suitable spirituality fluctuating spread out from the room and quickly blend into the surrounding darkness. The hidden flow that he had barely sensed vanished, and tranquility of the night returned. As expected, his result would be beyond our powers. It was solved just like that. I'll just wait a little longer. It would be dawn in an hour or two anyways. Even if there really is a problem, this place has a cathedral of the mandated punishers team. Klein half closed his eyes and began to engage in cognition. Bayam Amir's Leaf Bar. The Nits, determined to hoodwink and monitoring, carried a cup of Lanty-proof and drunkenly watched as the girls on the boxing ring danced a hot, sexy dance. Okay. The Nits dog shit. He's so mean. It's been so long since they lost a single piece of clothing. He shot him with the other drunks. Then, ignoring whether they received any response, they laughed out, clicked glasses, and drank. Have you read the newspapers? A man who was fooling around in the bar late at night, burped and said to his companions, "Did your brain get eaten by a donkey? Do you think that I can read those twisting and turning letters of the alphabet? Holy Lord of Storms, I'm only interested in this kind of twisting and turning. Ha! Ow, my arm hurts." His companion raised his left glass and pointed at the dancers, laughed, and with his thought was a humorous answer. The man who had spoken earlier smacked the back of his head. Steel is dead. He was killed by blazing. The nearby Danitz was stunned for a moment, then he sat up, turned his head slightly, he cleared his throat and took a sip of the liquor, acting as if nothing had happened, but he secretly inched closer to hear what the others had to say about the matter. The adventurer and part-time part who had brought him into the trade had once said that life at sea would have been meaningless without liquor, woman, and boasting. Steel, what steel? Let me tell you, when I was young, I once defeated a steel pipe, another drunkard interrupted. What did you do to the steel pipe? Should I say something like, whoa, yours sure is thin? Whoa, okay. The first man to speak revealed a knowing smile. He didn't wait for a reply as he continued. Steel Mavedi is dead. The second mate of the Admiral Blood is dead. The last half of his words came out in a low growl. It frightened one of the fellows who was already wavering to slip to the bottom of the table as he raved in horror. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Dog shed. A bar is always so chaotic. Hurry up and get to the point. I'm waiting for you to praise Lord Blazing. The disguised Danitz couldn't wait to smash the cup of alcohol in his hand at the ground. The papers mentioned that it was jointly done by the Navy and the Church. Steel is dead. Blood Brambles is dead. Even the calm squall is dead. John Smith and the bunch of assholes have been caught as well. A drunk who was still a little lucid came from over and joined in on the conversation. No, that's not the truth. The man who raised the topic first shook his head with a smile. I have a friend working at the news agency. He told me that this was verifiable intel that cannot be published. The Navy and the Church were only used. The true murderers is Blazing the Nits and a mysterious, experienced, and powerful adventurer, a bounty hunter. Impossible. There's absolutely no way Blazing the Nits can defeat Steel. Even if it's a sneak attack, there's no way he can finish Steel. A few drinkers shared similar viewpoints. The crux is that powerful adventurer. I suspect that he's an adventurer nearing the rank of Pirate Admiral. Damn, news spreads quick, dude. They're going after Gurman, bro, in like the next few chapters, right? The man who started the conversation emphasized, I have no idea how the Nits got to know that guy. Hey, he contributed in the matter. Apparently, Blood Brambles was finished off by him. Didn't you notice that Blazing's bounty... Oh. His bounty went up. Blazing's bounty had increased to 4,200 pounds. That's right. Really. Blazing is like, shit. Fuck. He's like, now he has to be scared. Now he has to be worried and more people are going to go after him. Blazing sure isn't simple. What a fierce pirate? No, a great pirate. Great pirates. I really couldn't tell the last time I drank with him. Phew, you son of a bitch. Where did I ever drink with you? I don't even know you. Amidst the exclamations, the Nits thought in delight. 4,200 pounds. If those fellows were to know, they would definitely get up at night to wipe the deck in envy, huh? I can now be said to be the strongest boatswain on the Golden Dream. At this moment, the Nits wish he could fly back to the ship and drink and brag to his fellows like the Iron Skin and Barrel, telling them all about the thrilling events in Banshee Harbor, how he had defeated the fallen bishop, how he had cleverly escaped from the ambush of Steel and the others, and how he had set up a trap to finish off all his enemies, and how he would never be able to play the card game of life ever again. Unfortunately, for the sake of Captain, I still have to continue to be the servant of the Gurman Sparrow, that madman. Sigh, I'm already a great 4,200 pound pirate. The Nits sighed, allowing himself to continue to be paralyzed by the alcohol. As the Storm Cathedral's bells rang, the orange sun rose in the sky. The surroundings were still so quiet that only the sound of water could be heard. Without encountering anything abnormal, Klein exhaled in relief and took off his clothes, returned to bed, and made up for his lack of sleep by sleeping for another 2 more hours. His considerable spirituality allowed him to wake up at the scheduled time of 8:30 a.m. He washed up slowly, changed his clothes, and went to the first floor to buy alcohol. No, first floor to buy, how does that say alcohol? To buy a loaf of bread with cooked chestnuts and a glass of Gurmy sape. He ate as he walked to the dock. Since he had already bought his return tickets for 9 o'clock dinner, Klein kept watch of the time and prepared to board the ship. At that moment, he saw the lady with the greenish-gray eyes as well as the 3 male adventurers from her team. They were buying tickets at the Oh, we're going to have a fight on the ship, huh? They were buying tickets at the ticket office. The liner is about to leave. They definitely wouldn't be able to make it in time to the 9 o'clock trip. I wonder what they obtained from the abandoned temple. But last night, they attracted an existence similar to an evil spirit. Please don't let anything unexpected happen when they ride on the liner. Klein used his body to block the adventurer's line of sight, took out the gold coin, and made a divination. His revelation was that the later liner wouldn't be in danger. Klein hesitated for 2 seconds, looked at the passengers, waited for 10 o'clock liner near the ticket office, rubbed his fingers together in silence, and lit the ticket in his palm. I wonder if he's washed his hands now. Coincidence? I think not. I think they're following him. And lit the ticket in his palm. He went back to the ticket office as if nothing had happened and bought the 10 o'clock liner ticket for 4 soli. Then he went to the washroom. Okay, he's definitely washing his hands now. Then he went to the washroom at the docks, went above the gray fog, and quickly divined his worries. Well, he hasn't washed his hands yet. He knew very well that if the results show that there was great dangers, he wouldn't take the risk of boarding the ship. Instead, he would find a way to prevent the ship from sailing and destroy it, if necessary, to prevent any innocents from dying. If the revelation was the same as the divination from before, he would ride it normally while keeping a lookout for any accidents. In the end, he still received a negative response, so it's safe to get on it. Damn, gotta go. No, it's okay, Unhinged. You take care. Let us know who wins. He adjusted his position of the Murlocs. Oh, wait, I skipped a line. Klein was relieved and returned to the real world. He adjusted the position of the Murloc's bladder for quick response. If an accident really happened, this bioneer gradient would become quite important in the vast ocean. This bioneer gradient could also be used in a rudimentary simple matter, just like the all-black eye, which had been contaminated by the true crater. 10 o'clock sharp, Klein, in his German-spur appearance, picked up the suitcase, followed the adventures, and boarded the liner. Along the way, he appeared to doze off or read old newspapers and magazines on the ship, but in actual fact, he was keeping an eye on the greenish, gray-eyed lady and her companions. His wariness continued all the way to the port of Bayonne, but no accidents occurred in the middle. So it's safe. Did they resolve all the problems? What did they actually get? Klein stopped by the side of the road, bought the latest newspapers from a news bay, and watched the 4 adventures from the corners of his eyes until they disappeared. Klein decided to not think about it anymore. As long as it didn't endanger the overall situation, he wasn't concerned about what those people had done. He was just a little curious. He picked up his suitcase, leafing through the papers as he walked down Acid Lemon Street like an ordinary passerby. Suddenly, with a chuckle, he said to himself, the bounty for Danitz has risen to 4,200 pounds. If things continue like this, he suspected whether he could resist the urge of sending this fellow to the governor's general office. Maybe I'll catch him, man. Walking back to the Wind of Azure Inn, Klein heard the undulated snores that were slowly reaching a crescendo before he even took out his keys. He didn't escape. Klein was slightly surprised, but he wasn't too surprised either. He had previously tampered with Shadow Cloak, so as long as the Nits left, he could use Divination's method to track him down and find the Vice Admiral Iceberg. Although he's timid, he's still very cautious. Klein opened the door and entered, looking at the Nits, who awoke with a start. He grinned a little. Congratulations, Mr. 4,200 pounds. The Nits was instantly wide awake, waiting to laugh dryly in response, but he couldn't. At this moment, he felt like his life might be in danger. And that's where you team up with Gurman! And now the 2 of them go out to sea together. And now he doesn't have to worry about himself, because he knows Gurman got his back. That's what's going to happen. All right, chapter 534. It's called A Dream Lesson. The Nits worries didn't come true. Klein gave him a look and went into the bedroom to rest. During the 5 hours he spent on the liner, he's always been in a highly tense state. He had also been alarmed last night and didn't sleep well as a result. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel exhausted. With a thud, Klein closed the bedroom door. Phew, he scared me to death. The Nits relaxed and slept into the reclining chair. The scene of him turning into gold pounds had surfaced in his mind a moment ago. He found it difficult to stop having these scenes appear one after another in his mind. After a moment of silence, the Nits, who had been hanging around the bar until dawn, fell asleep again without realizing it. He dreamed that the captain had arrived to save him, but she had failed. Instead, she got caught by Gurman Sparrow and ended up becoming a maid-servant for this crazy adventurer. Just as the Nits was outraged and unable to resist, he suddenly saw the blurry scene around him clear. Just as he was about to wake up, the scene froze on the luxurious suite of the Wind Desert Inn. Knock, knock, knock. The Nits heard a slow, soothing knock on the door. Wasn't I dreaming? With this question in mind, the Nits walked over to the door and turned the handle. As a crack in the door widened, he saw a familiar figure. He saw a beautiful lady with a face shaped like a goose egg. Magoose? With a head shaped like a magoose egg, a high-nosed bridge, thin lips, a pair of pale blue eyes that resemble clear spring water. Her long brown hair parted in the middle, tied in a simple but delicate knot back at the back of her head as they've flown down. Migus? Okay, so it's definitely not her. She didn't wear a hat, only wearing a beige coat with a tight at the waist. Is it the woman on the boat that was with Klein? Her collar was covered with palm-sized flowers woven from white lace. Matching her coat was a dark-colored skirt which reached her knees. The pleats of her skirt was connected, looking slightly fluffy. On her feet were a pair of leather boots that shared the same color as her hair. Captain, the Nits cried an alarm. I'm sorry, is this in his dream? That would be wild, son. No, but I think this is a dream right now. He hurriedly snapped out of his reverie, turned around, and faced German Sparrow's bedroom while taking a defensive stance. Be careful, Run. A lunatic is looking for you. He has a terrifying organization backing him. As the feeling of self-sacrifice welled up in him, the Nits heard his captain calmly say, "This is a dream?" "Dream, yeah, I'm dreaming. What's there to be afraid of?" The Nits glanced left and right, folded his arms, turned around and said, "Captain, you simulated the powers of a nightmare. That can't be right. You were near Sonia Island just last week. The largest island in this region is Sonia Sea, which was also the origins of its name. It was almost like a small continent. Originally, it was only the remaining gathering place for elves after the cataclysm, but as time passed..." Is this new lore? After the cataclysm, but as time passed, the ancient Beyonder race was plunged by all sorts of factors and gradually died out. So they gradually died out. Just keep reading. Let's keep reading. The occasional sightings of them prove that they hadn't completely gone extinct. It has to be the one that was watching Klein, right? That threw the snake in his room. Like she was probably testing him to see what he'd do. And she was probably just observing him on the ferry to see what he'd do. It was probably her in disguise. At the end of the fourth epoch, but does she have green eyes? No, I think I'm mixing them up. At the end of the fourth epoch, the Lone Kingdom occupied this island, but in the 20-year war, they suffered a terrible defeat, handing over Sonia Island to the Phasic Empire. This was already more than 7 centuries ago. Sonia Island was situated northwest of the Rocher Archipelago, and it took nearly half a month by ship to arrive. Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina Edwards was still in the vicinity of the Sonia Island last week, so it was impossible to reach Bayham within a week, unless she could fly or use the spirit world to travel. It sounds like someone's a traveler. Ooh, what's this volume called? Traveler? Maybe. The beautiful lady whom the Nits addressed as Captain nodded. We have just entered the Rorstad Sea, still 1,000 nautical miles away from Bayham. In other words, she'll still take another 3 to 4 days before arriving. That's what I call normal. The Nits cautiously asked. This should have already surpassed the range of a nightmare. Coincidence? Exactly, D. I think not. This should have already surpassed the range of a nightmare. Moreover, it far exceeds, he added warningly. Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina entered the room and walked towards the table and chair. Is not a nightmare power? I'm sorry, does she know? Hold on, let's keep reading. It's not a nightmare power, but a secret ritualistic magic. It uses an item left behind on the ship to enter the dream of someone very far away. Listening to the captain's meticulous explanation, the Nits instantly felt as if she had returned to the golden dream and was beginning his lesson. I've never heard of such a ritualistic magic. Yes, Captain has mastered many strange and rare magic and witchcraft. No one can tell how much knowledge she possesses. This has to be Klein doing a dream divination on him or going into his dreams and like pretending to be her. And she got her face from like a bounty board, right? She seems to have mentioned that her sequence name is Mysticism. Sequence drop? Potion reveal? She seems to have mentioned that her sequence name is Mysticism Magister. So, I'm reading that wrong, I'm sorry. So if I had known that she had the secret technique, then I wouldn't have been so frustrated over how to inform her about the unexpected events in Bayham. The Nits interrupted Edwina's description with a flurry of thoughts. Captain, you sense that there's a problem with our point of contact over here. Yes, this is another secret technique. Edwina seemed inclined to describe the specific method in detail. Seeing this, the Nits hurriedly sighed. Poor old Rin and the others. Edwina stopped walking and turned her back to the window, asking succinctly what happened. I'll have to start from the Mirror Harbor. The Nits felt energized as if his long-lasting depression had finally paid off at that moment. He described his attempts to recruit German Sparrow, but he ended up discovering that he was a madman and he also exaggerated his plight on the White Gate. According to the rough draft he was prepared last night, he thoughtfully described the weird and horrifying situation in Bansi Harbor, including the ambush and assassination attempt involving Steel Mavetti. He explained everything and how he joined forces with German Sparrow for a counterattack and hunt, as well as his own theories about German Sparrow's background and powers. This included creeping hunger and the secretive, powerful organization. During this process, he tried his best to restore the truth, only exaggerating the role he played, and he's trying to hype himself up, raising his status from servant or attendant to an assistant or a collaborator. In his dreams, dude. In his dreams. Vice Admiral EDWINA listened quietly the entire time without interrupting him. When he was done, she nodded slightly and said, "He has no ill intentions. Him, German Sparrow, means no harm." Dinitz quickly said, "Captain, regardless, he's a dangerous fellow. Are you sure he means no harm?" "I can't be sure," Edwina replied very calmly. "Then why were you?" Dinitz took a silent breath, sensing the similarity between his captain and German Sparrow. There were people who he couldn't engage in a conversation with. Vice Admiral Icebreaker Edwina said with a straight face, "That's just my speculation and judgment." Dennis rubbed his temples with his right hand. Dude, thank you for following. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you, man. Thank you. Praise the fool. Let me find my place. Dennis rubbed his temples with his right hand. Anyways, he's dangerous. And Vice Admiral, that's just a judgment. It's right here. Denitz rubbed his temples with his right hand. Anyways, he's dangerous. There's a secret organization backing him, and I've no idea about the situation of the organization. Captain, I don't think you should take the risk of communicating with him, even if he claims to have something to ask you. Edwina thought for a moment before saying, "There's no need to take risks. I can communicate with him through you." Denitz first heaved a sigh of relief before asking both curiously and exceptionally, "Captain, how will that work? Or should I say, what do I need to do?" Edwina raised his right hand, revealing a stand and a blackboard in her dream. "I need you to hold a ritual," she said. "It's called a soul fall... Another soul ritual? It's called a soul fall ritual. It allows my soul to pass through the spirit world and attach itself to your body. I'll be able to converse direct..." So now we're like getting into... What was that? Did we get another follow? Because it looped again. Dude, thank you. I probably missed it. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry if I missed it. Thank you, man. Bro, he's really dreaming right now. It's funny that he's dreaming and now she's teaching him the soul fall ritual. "It allows my soul to pass through the spirit world and attach itself to your body. I'll be able to converse directly with German. It will work on anyone below that of a demigod with an effective distance of no more than 500 nocturnal miles. It involves reason and communication, and it belongs to the realm of God of knowledge and wisdom. You must draw the corresponding symbols in magic label. In mysticism, the blue planet corresponds to the God of knowledge and wisdom, Mercury. Mercury, brass, lavender, pepper, mint are needed. Blue planet corresponds to Saturday. The time of the blue planet is from midnight to 1 on Friday and 11 to 12 noon on Saturday." Edwina explained that she wrote the key points to remember the blackboard, and Denitz instinctively sat down and assumed a listening posture. As he listened, he suddenly felt at a loss. "Why do I need to attend classes even in my dreams?" In the bedroom, Klein, who was sleeping, suddenly jolted awake, having vaguely sensed something. He got out of bed and listened for a moment. In the living room, although Denitz was snoring, his breathing was calmer than before. So he knows. It wasn't too strange, but it was sufficiently unusual for an experienced senior expert in mysticism like Klein, who had been through a lot. He softly walked to the door that separated the bedroom from the living room, reached out the land, and slowly turned it. Without a sound, Klein walked out of the bedroom and saw Denitz lying in a reclining chair, fast asleep. Everything around him appeared normal. Klein quietly activated his spirit vision and checked the blazing, but he didn't find anything amiss. Whether it was the color of his aura or the changing in his mood, there was nothing abnormal about him, all within a reasonable range. After watching for a while, Klein frowned and took out a silver dream charm. In the dream, Denitz was learning the soul... He's seeing this. School and dream? What a nightmare. He's like, get me out of here. In the dream, Denitz was learning the soul fall ritual with a bitter expression. He had no doubt that the captain in front of him was genuine. No one can fake such a style of hobby. At that moment, he heard the sound of the lock turning. Subconsciously, Denitz looked towards the bedroom where the crack in the door was weeding, and German Sparrow, who was wearing only a white shirt, walked out expressionally. "You, how did you appear here?" Denitz shot to his feet, blurting out in shock. He quickly snapped to his senses and stamped, "This is my dream?" He's like, get out of here, bro. Like, personal space, dude. How is German Sparrow appearing so easily? With one hand in his pocket of his dark trousers, Klein walked towards the woman who had her back to the window, said in a low voice, "A charm." Then looked directly at the woman. He asked almost certainly, "Edwina Edwards." Her attire is a little strange. She doesn't look like an adventurer, much less a pirate. She looks like a woman with a decent job, someone who can support herself on her own. The style of her attire looks like it comes from Intis. Klein thought, feeling somewhat unaccustomed. Edwina nodded slightly and similarly replied with a question. German Sparrow, yes, good afternoon, ma'am. Klein smiled slightly, pressed his hands to his chest, and bowed. Edwina nodded and replied, good afternoon. Klein, who was maintaining his persona, stopped talking, waited for the other side to take the initiative and ask him about his purpose. He looked at Edwina. Edwina looked at him. And they fall in love and live happily ever after. Maybe? There was a sudden silence in the dream for several minutes, and then they fell in love and lived happily ever after. From time to time, the Nits looked to the right and to the left, noticing they fell in love and lived happily ever after. Having a baffling feeling that perhaps all of this might really be a dream. He's like, ah, shit, like this really might be a dream. Okay, next chapter. Our chapter 535 is called Fond of Teaching. Unable to tolerate the situation, the Nits decided to do something about the situation. He coughed twice and faced Admiral Iceberg Edwina Edwards and said, Captain, Mr. German Sparrow has some questions for you. No shit, bro. Like, he's already here. Like, of course. Phew, Klein out a sigh of relief. If this stared on continue, he felt as though his persona would collapse. Edwina gently nodded her head, looked at Klein, and said, Mr. Sparrow, have you received an education? What kind of question is this? Klein's expression didn't change as he indifferently replied, university graduate. The Nits looked at German Sparrow in surprise, unable to believe that the fact that this crazy adventurer and bounty hunter had actually gone to university and even graduated. He had no way of putting a university hallmark of wisdom with that of German Sparrow together. Unless it's some hunter university or killer academy. Hold up, is this foreshadowing? There's like a hunter academy? Or like a killer academy? Or a university that exists only in the fantasies of madmen and psychopaths. The Nits couldn't help but lampoon silently. Edwina didn't seem surprised. She continued to ask, what languages have you mastered? Klein resisted the urge to frown and said, Jotun, Elvish, Dragoness, Ancient Hermes, Ancient Phasic, Lowness. Edwina responded tearfully, do you understand the other domains in mysticism? She's like, I want you on my team. Oh, she's gonna try and recruit him. Do you understand the other domains in mysticism? Feeling adrift for a moment, Klein felt that he had returned to his previous life's elementary school days. Due to his age handicap, he had been asked a series of questions by a teacher, such as how many Chinese characters had mastered, if he had mastered the 4 arithmetic operations, whether he knew the English alphabet, and how many Tang Dynasty poems he could recite. Calm down, you're German Sparrow now. Klein once again said without emotion, adept. Edwina thought for 2 seconds, then explained in an unhurried manner. I have to combine your standard of knowledge with how I would answer the question so that you can understand the answers more easily. This. Klein was surprised to find that the beautiful lady in front of him was nothing like an adventurer acting as a part-time pirate. She was basically a teacher with a cold expression but a kind and patient attitude. He calmed down after thinking about the vampire that headed for the Church of Earth, Mother Daly. This is the first pirate admiral I'm officially meeting. She's indeed unique. Oh, it is. She is pirate. Why does it vice admiral? She's a pirate admiral. This is the first. She's a pirate admiral, not a vice pirate admiral. Okay, got it. This is the first pirate admiral I'm officially meeting. She's indeed unique. Klein secretly said and said, first question, where do beyonder creatures appear at sea? The commonly seen ones. He didn't directly ask about mermaids, and he didn't want her to see through his real purpose, which will lead to unnecessary accidents. Edwina thought for a moment and then said, what? And then wiped the soulfall ritual of the blackboard. She then wrote and drew. Set off from Sonia Sea Sail 1,200 nautical miles in the direction and you'll enter the depths of the sea which humans have never explored. Is Klein gonna maybe look into the abyss? There is a Naga tribe active there. They've been working hard to find the underwater city. Atlantis? Right? Find the underwater city which is rumored to have a more powerful demon sealed within it. That's the entity of their faith. Hold on, wait. If you go through the abyss and end up in the City of Silver, the underwater city would be the City of Silver, and the rumored powerful demon would be the true creator? Or no, like the creator. Maybe? I lost my place. Sealed within, that's the entity of their faith. Edwina, of their faith. Okay. Edwina spoke in detail partly for her own efforts to find the treasure itself and partly from the knowledge and rumors she had exchanged. It took her a while to finish the general story, but to Klein's dismay, there was no mermaids anywhere except for the eastern waters of the Gargus Archipelago. He quickly calmed his mood and said, second question, do you know how to remove the mental corruption from a Beyonder characteristic? He didn't hide the fact that he knew about Beyonder characteristics. Edwina's eyes flickered for the most, as though she had a new understanding of German Sparrow. She shook her head. I don't know. However, I once imagined that it's possible by borrowing the power of an external force and completely crushing the corrupted power characteristic to reduce it to the smallest specks of light. Z cooking? Bro, City of Silver has a whole continent. Well, hold up. No, I don't mean like City of Silver's directly underwater. I mean that like if you're going through, like, we know that we know that two people have been able to directly go through the abyss out at sea and end up in the City of Silver. Whether, like, if you look at a map, if it like physically looks like you're going down, but you end up like in another realm. Well, it's like the Great Fog. Like, you know, when you like fall down, you're not directly falling down from the sky, right? Like, you're going to a different realm. Maybe like it physically looks like they're going down, but they end up in a different realm. We only know that they went at sea and ended up in the City of Silver. Yes, but we know that they most likely went through the abyss. Cammy's trying to throw me off. I see what Cammy's doing there. Cammy's trying to trick me. I see what he's doing. I ain't gonna fall for that. I see what he's doing. He's trying to throw me off the scent. Because somebody will say interesting or Z cooking. I don't know. We'll see. I might be wrong or right. Unfortunately, the only gods can do this. Klein's gonna do that later. Smallest specks of light. This way, whether it's corrupted or cursed, they will scatter, having lost their vessel. They would rapidly or slowly vanish. As for the shattered beyond their characteristics, it will gather bit by bit due to particular traits, eventually taking form again. So her thought process is, if you destroy the characteristic, it reforms. Because you can neither create or destroy a characteristic. Oh, that's smart. That's actually smart. What the fuck? Yeah, because you can't destroy them and you can't create them. You just break it apart so the corruption dissipates and you just let it reform. That is an actual goated speculation. Okay. Unfortunately, only gods can do this. He's like, I know a guy. If you get the favor of any god, you can try to please them by offering enough sacrifices and pray for response. The law of convergence of beyond characteristics. In his mind, Klein was filled with EDWINA and had purposely left out. At that moment, he couldn't help but sigh. The Vice Admiral Iceberg, captain of the Golden Dream, was extremely knowledgeable in mysticism. She wasn't worse than him, someone who had read many of Roselle's diary entries and had experienced many things. It was said that Vice Admiral Iceberg can replicate or simulate the Beyonder powers of her opponents, Shepard, when they use them in front of her. This is rather similar to Mr. Eisinger and Stanton's 2081 ring. Oh, the ring. Yeah, you can probably mimic them. As soon as Klein's thoughts began to wander, he forcibly reined them back, and he nodded as he was thinking about something. I agree with this hypothesis. Regretfully, I haven't done it in practice. It's only conjecture. EDWINA rarely used a word that described emotion. Denitz, who had been listening by the side, had a dazed look in his eye. He was unable to keep up with the conversation. I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? Hello, Timsley Smart moment. I love it, man. This is a damn good series. What are they talking about? What are they discussing? What do I know? Why do I know every word but know nothing when they're strung together? What's a Beyonder characteristic? How does he not know what's a Beyonder characteristic? What? What the like what? Did he just like wake up and able to shoot fireballs? How does he not know? Oh, wait. He could have technically been born with a half sequence. Hold up. It's hidden from general public. He is a wild Beyonder that was probably born with it. So he just thinks he's like innately different and special, right? But he doesn't know necessarily what's a Beyonder characteristic. Oh, people know about the potions, but not the fact that you're right. That was something that was revealed in volume 1. Like, people think like, oh, you just make the potions, but we don't know where the potions come from. You're right. They don't know about the law. Yeah. No, he just using ingredients. Yeah, you're right. He knows that you need ingredients for a potion, but he doesn't necessarily know that, like, oh, you can use a Beyonder character. Thank you. Sorry. Mix up. My bad. I forget. It's not general knowledge. What's a Beyonder characteristic? What does shattering it do? What does it gathering together represent? The Nitz looked left and right, his eyes blank. At this point, Klein threw out his third question he had thought about. Where can you find ancient raves? He only mentioned this kind of monster because the corresponding ingredients could also be used in the domain of death. Oh. And if he wants to switch pathways and go from seer, from seer to death. Wait, no. No. It was sleepless and deaf were interchangeable. Yeah, he can't. My bad. Sleepless and deaf are interchangeable, not seer and deaf. My bad. Okay, my bad. I mixed that up. I lost my place again. Where can you find deaths? Where can I find ancient raves? Didn't expose the secrets of his... Yeah, there you go. It didn't expose the secrets of his own sequence. Edwina glanced at the nets and said, I'll keep an eye out for you. If you want to attend Bayam beyond your gatherings, he knows if you... He can take you there. Not bad. It's easier to talk to Spark people. Glenn added, do you know where there are people who can make mystical items out of beyond ingredients or characteristics? I met one at the gathering, but he never showed up again. Edwina answered frankly, I have grasped the corresponding knowledge. I can simulate it, but I cannot guarantee the success rate. Heh, I'll wait then. Klein didn't harp on the topic and switched to asking, how much do you know about Death's Key? Damn, he's good. He's a good bargainer. Little. An iron black key suddenly appeared in Edwina's hand. It was about the size of a liri. Its shape was ancient. It had a dark luster. The pirate animal said, while half carrying the item from his shipwreck, if you mean this key, then I can tell you that it belongs to the giants. Klein glanced sideways at the nets. Your boatswain told me that it can also belong to a dragon or a demonic wolf. Okay. This was the earliest guess. I've recently found some historical documents, and with the help of the other items on the ship, I have a rudimentary idea. Edwina didn't show any agitation. She was filled with patience, but her expression remained cold. After finally regaining her sense and her as the owner of the dream, the Nets curiously asked, Captain, is it really the giants? Yes, Edwina gave an affirmative answer. The batch of documents show that there were still many giants active in the fourth epoch. Some of them had switched faiths to the god of combat, while the others were left scattered, becoming the hunting targets of humans. One of the tribes built a ship and tried to find the lost giants caught at sea, never to return. One of the tribes built a ship and tried to find the lost giants caught at sea. The abyss is at sea. The abyss can lead you to the city of silver. The lost giant king's court at sea. Are they talking about the giant king Armir? No, they wouldn't know this. Never to return. The second ship was... The lore is crazy in this series. God damn. I gotta catch up with my notes so I can like piece everything together, man. And then I gotta read my notes like weekly. The sunken ship was discovered, bro. Can you stop linking everything to the... Dude, it has to, Paul. Like, it's crazy. Like, the abyss is such an interesting premise. They're talking about the giants in general, trying to find the traces. No, like, I find the abyss such an interesting concept. Like, I know Lord of Mysteries isn't the first series to create an abyss, right? But, like, I feel like there's so much in the abyss that we won't find out until later. I mean, that's me hoping. Or coping, right? But I'm really excited to, like, learn more of the abyss, right? Because the abyss is always cool. And they even said that the abyss might even be able to tempt... like gods, and then they go mad, right? So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see where this whole theory goes. We'll see where the abyss leads later on. One of the tribes built a ship and tried to find the lost giants, kings of court at sea, never to return. The sunken ship was discovered, along with some of the items inside it, very similar to the relics that they left behind in the original settlement. So we have sufficient reason to believe that the key belongs to the giants and is very likely to be pointed towards a lost giant king's court of their race before the cataclysm. Giant King's Court in Little Sun said it is not far from the city of Silver. Oh. Giant King's Court, Little Sun said it's not that far from the city of Silver. Klein didn't say a word, but he quietly listened to Vice Admiral Iceberg's description. I have to say the city of Silver and the forsaken lands of gods are things I know that completely surpasses other beyonders. Huh. Even the seven gods can't find that place, or they find it hard to figure out the exact situation. In this aspect, I'm stronger than them. Klein's hyping himself up a little, dude. In this aspect, I'm stronger than them. Klein thought about it with a smug and self-deprecating manner before saying in a deep voice, if I offer a sufficient price, are you willing to sell the key? Of course, unless I acquire additional clues to the Giant King's Court. Edwina continued to speak at a moderate pace. Very good. If the Terry Club organizes organizes an expedition to the Giant King's court one day. I would buy this key. Klein was about to ask the last question when he suddenly remembered the last four adventures. Remember the four adventures. Relying on the power of the dreaming charm, he conjured the lady with the greenish-gray eyes who wore a man's shirt and her three companions. Do you know them? Edwina took a glance and said, almost without asking, Leticia Dolera, an archaeologist, and adventurer. Rumor has it that she's a member from the Moses Ascent Order or the Element Dawn. Moses Ascent Order, the ancient organization that believes in... Oh, shit. Nah, fuck this bitch. She's with the Hidden Sage? Oh, hell. Oh, we gotta take her out. Oh, we gotta take her out. I'm getting so mad just hearing the word Hidden Sage. Hold up. Maybe she's being led astray by the Hidden Sage. So we gotta bring her back. We gotta bring her back to the good side. Reverse jump. Jump them, dude. Jump them before the Hidden Sage makes them do something they're gonna regret. PTSD. It really isn't for money, and their goal is definitely something from the abandoned temple. Klein asked casually, what do you know about the Elemental Dawn? Maybe it has something to do with the alchemical life ritual. What do you know about Element Dawn? The mysterious organization was similar to psychology alchemists, having been... Oh. The mysterious organization was similar to the psychology alchemists, so they're not bad? Having been born in the recent 100 to 200 years that combine the elements of various schools of mysticism, it has its own set of theories. Oh yeah, it's not like old Neil was evil, right? Just because he was on that pathway, right? Like, with the Hidden Sage. It just, he was tempting him. Hold up, Zen. You're asking a really good question. That is... Hold up. I got one more page and then we're going to read it and we'll talk about it. Hold up. We'll read it right now. Hold up. We got like a page and a half. Don't worry. I will read that right now. I got you. It has its own set of theories and its members were all proficient in spellcasting and has mastery in many ancient witchcraft techniques. Edwina pursed her lips and said, they've always been fighting against the Moses Ascent Order. Rumor has it that the eldest daughter of Emperor Roselle Bernetta Gustave established it. Edwina pursed her lips and said, they've always been fighting against the Moses Ascent Order. Rumor has it that the eldest daughter of Emperor Roselle, Bernadette Gustave, established it. The Element Dawn is headed by Bernadette. Zarathul's prophecy is quite accurate after all. She really can be considered an important figure in the Beyond World. Klein, slightly inwardly feeling somewhat enlightened. He resisted the urge to sigh and look at Edwina. He calmly said, one last question. When a beautiful lady and blazing in its attention was fully focused on him, he slowly opened his mouth. Are you interested in cooperating? What kind of cooperation? Edwina returned with a question. The smile on Klein's face became more and more exuberant. With a hint of madness in it, he said, hunt Admiral of Blood? Oh, that is hype. Moses Ascetic? Moses Ascetic. Oh, I've been saying ascent. Moses Ascetic. Yeah, my bad. Ascetic. Like aesthetic, just without the t. Ascetic. Got it. Ascetic. Thank you. All right, let me quickly update this. Let me quickly read this before we continue with the next chapter. So Zen said, if the Abyss is truly connected to the City of Silver, why did Rizal haven't found the city in his lifetime? If this is a spoiler, delete it, DSV. I don't know. So, why Rizal haven't found... So, he said he found the Abyss, right? But we don't know necessarily if he went into the Abyss or not. That we don't know. Like he said in a page, I found the Abyss, but he never elaborated more. Like there's two possibilities. For one, he went into the Abyss, maybe saw the City of Silver and came back, or he wasn't tempted enough to go into the Abyss because he probably sensed had a lot of bad voodoo energy in there and like he might go mad. We know that Roselle saw the Abyss, not that he went in it. Yeah, we know he didn't go into the Abyss. We know he only saw the Abyss. Yeah, he said he saw it, but he didn't find it. Ooh, that's true. That is true. I don't know. I find it interesting that like we know technically the child Derek ran into said he like saw the Abyss and went into the Abyss with his dad and ended up in the City of Silver. Correct? Right? He said something along the lines. They found an Abyss. They went through the Abyss out in like the Fog Sea. when they were out in the Foxy, they found the abyss, went through. No, no, really? I thought that's what happened. I thought they said they were. Don't think they said they enter the abyss. No, I thought shit. I thought they saw the Foxy. I thought they went through the Foxy, got lost in the Foxy, right? Because we know Olger said he lost them when they were on the Foxy. Then they saw the abyss, and they never confirmed that they went through it or not. Okay, so we know like somewhere in the fog. I guess that's where I'm I guess that's how I'm connecting it. And then there was a whole mural depiction of like the true creator with like Adam and Amon. How it looked like the creator was coming out of an abyss. And then he was engulfed in like black miasma or like black goo. And I feel like that sounds like abyssy. That sounds like an abyss. So I guess that's how I'm connecting it in my head. Wording is particular. Yes, okay, so wording is particular. But I guess that's how I'm wording it. Because of the mural Derek saw where it depicts the creator with like Adam and Eve and like all these other like deities coming out of the ground to like corrupt him or tempt him. Be careful. Oh yeah, we'll be careful. Yeah, we'll be careful. I guess that's the reason I'm trying to like connect that the abyss is a bridge to the city of silver, right? And the city of silver is always covered in like fog and darkness and cloudiness, and like there's the fog sea. Oh, what the fuck? And then like maybe the fog sea is just like a bigger barrier of like when you go above the gray fog. Oh wait, what the fuck? Because you know how like Klein now he has his own. You know how like now Klein has his own fog barrier. Maybe the fog sea is actually just that in and of itself. We are careful. I'm just giving him something to talk about. That is true. No, yeah. Zen was being careful. Cooking really good. Ooh, maybe that's what the fog sea is. Holy shit! Hold the fuck up. If those two people went through the fog sea and somehow ended up in the city of silver, and Klein was able to pull in Derek when he went above the gray fog, which is what covered in what? It's covered in fog, right? Easy starting theory. We're literally theory crafting out of nowhere. I was just gonna talk for like a minute or two. Remember to write them down. You guys got me out. So you don't. No, it's all right. I'm not gonna forget it. I won't forget it. Trust. I'm gonna remember this in 1,000 chapters because I'm gonna be like, oh shit, I called it right here and there. There has to be a connection. The fog sea connected those two people on that boat to the city of silver. Klein is able to like directly pull in the red stars that connected Derek to the city of silver. Your theorizing skills leveled up. There has to be a connection. Now, if this bridge is the abyss or not, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Like we know the abyss is on a higher plane than above the spirit world, because we know our road said that. Like he who resides above the spirit world or above a higher spiritual plane. So, all right, food for thought. But yeah, let's go into the next chapter. All right, next chapter is called 536, Local Faith. What? Hunting Admiral Blood, the Nitz almost raised his right hand to his ear. His first reaction was that he had misheard. Is like, ain't no way you just said that. However, German Sparrow's smile was hidden with hidden madness, and the slight movement of his captain's eyebrows and abnormality of hers reminded him that what was said had really happened. This madman German Sparrow really is daring. This is one of the 7 pirate admirals. We'll take him out quickly. They aren't people that a character like Stilmovetti can be compared with. The Nitz people shrank, his heart on the brink of roaring. Putting aside the fact that Admiral Blood Center's own might, just the spires underneath him are intimidating enough. His first mate, third mate, and the captains of each ship are all capable of independently leading a large pirate crew. There are still many of the crew which Stilmovetti had brought to Bam with him and the Blood Pirate crew. When Vice Admiral Hurricane Quillingus died, silently like a wild dog in Backland, it was mainly because he wasn't with his pirate crew. However, Admiral Blood Center is different. He seldom leaves his flagship and rarely leaves the company of his men. The Abyss is the friends we made along the way? Maybe. We'll find out if that's true. Even if the focus is placed on the back of Center Strength, it would still be extremely terrifying. He is mysterious, bizarre, and is one of the few powerhouses at sea who is second only to the 4 kings. Even Captain might not dare to claim to be his superior, and Madman Guts really does exceed my imagination. No, he doesn't know the meaning of fear at all. The death and replacement of a pirate admiral will, Definitely be a great shock to the 5Cs. One thought after another flashed through Danit's mind, but in the end, he strangely calmed down. It was because he recalled that German Sparrow was a powerhouse at the level of 7 admirals, and there might be a hidden terrifying organization backing him. It's true. Edwina said after a few seconds, do you know of the Rose School of Thoughts? Not only do I know them, I've also killed their people and taken their mystical items. Wait a minute, why do I have to describe myself as a bad guy? Klein converged his small and said in an unperturbed manner, I've hunted their members. Edwina fell silent again. Next to her, Danitz once again had various thoughts. What are they talking about? What's the Rose School of Thought? Where am I? Whose dream is this? After a short moment of silence, Edwina said, after the huge battle with Vice Admiral Dusk's pirate crew, Senner's crew vanished. At present, no one knows where they are. One will have to wait patiently. Is this an agreement? Klein once again revealed a smile. I do not lack patience. How can I contact you? Edwina turned her head to look at the nets. He knows how. Me, Soulfall Ritual. Wait a minute. Captain, you mean I have to follow this madman Gerben Sparrow during this period of time? Oh, this is gonna be a good duel. No, who knows when this fellow will go crazy. With a start, Dennis quickly opened his mouth and said, Captain, I've already left the golden dream for too long. I've missed too many lessons. I can't wait to return. It's like, please, I want to be in another lesson. He tried his hardest to show his sincerity in his eyes, filling them with a desire of knowledge. I believe we can switch to someone else like Iron Skin and Barrel. Before he finished the sentence, Edwina suddenly raised her right hand and pressed it against her ear. She looked slightly to the side and said without expression, what did you say? I couldn't hear it. Rozelle's dream spell is reaching its limit. The pirate admiral's skirt fluctuated slightly as she took a step back before her figure quickly turned faint, reducing into points of fragmented light. The rest of the knit's words were left stuck in his throat. He stretched out his right hand in an attempt to grasp something, but he ended up weakly dropping down. Rozelle's dream spell, the Emperor's presence in the field of mysticism, is also quite formidable. The full name of the Vice Admiral Iceberg is Edwina Edwards. Edwina Edwards. Isn't that the surname of one of the Emperor's 4... Oh, Edwards was killed. Yeah, you're right. Gustav had one of his 4 horsemen that was killed was called Edwards. Yeah, that was a surname. Isn't this the surname of one of Emperor's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, a descendant? However, from the tone of the Vice Admiral Iceberg, she isn't familiar with the eldest daughter of the Emperor Bernadette. They might not even know each other. Klein looked at the knits, whose expression had completely collapsed, and let out a soft laugh. Perhaps one day I will call you Mr. 10,000 pound? Oh, senor. It's pronounced like senor, like in Spanish. Oh, John. Thank you, John. I thought it was center. Since the N didn't have that one thing on it. Okay, so it's senor. Got it. Then it straightened his back in fright, and then he saw a German Sparrow figure disappear from his dream. If I were only Sequence 7 and had a bounty of 7,000 or 8,000 pounds, then I would be targeted everywhere I go. Then it stood rooted in his dream. He had his head hurting the more he thought about it. It does have the special... Oh, and the original characteristic, it has the special asterisk. Got it. In the evening, the Nits looked at German Sparrow, who was dressed as a native. Today, we'll be visiting the local faction. We might be able to find some good things here. They'll have a great need for beyond ingredients, food, and weapons. At this point, the Nits looked at German Sparrow up and down. It was rare for him to find something that he was better than him at. He said with a smile, this area is filled with local people. There aren't even many people with mixed blood. If there's even the slightest sign of abnormality in their clothing, you will be discovered. Your pantaloons and brown jacket are fine, but you can't wear a shirt inside. A real native wears Tarabab shirts. They're similar to Cecil shirts, but they're either all blue or white. They don't wear capes, head scarves, or anything. Also, people like you, who look obviously low in S, will encounter very serious discrimination and hostility there. Just like a wolf that sneaks... Ooh, just like a wolf? Almost like a Flagera wolf? An ancient wolf? An ancient deity wolf-like thing? Foreshadowing? Foreshadowing Klein equals Flagera confirmed? Wolf foreshadowing. I see what they're doing there. Just like a wolf that sneaks into the flock of sheep, you can't hide your existence at all. Before he can finish, he saw German Sparrow tilt his head and looked at him. His deep facial features quickly turned soft. His fair skin was instantly stained with the cold of breeze. In just a snap, he became an undeniable native that didn't stand out in any way. And after a few seconds of silence, then let's laugh dryly as if nothing had happened. Me too. I have to disguise myself. You disguise. Heh. Klein took off his cap and sat down. What local faction? It actually trades beyond our ingredients, foods, and weapons. Ahem, to put it simply, ahem, the residents, the Nits suddenly wasn't sure if German Sparrow had any connections with the Lowen officials. Klein was startled for a second. Resistance. The Nits smiled awkwardly and said, people who clamor for independence and for natives to administer the local affairs, their encampments is deep in the woods of or at sea. They cooperated with many pirates and adventurers. Of course, the ones backing them are mainly people of the Fasik and Intis. Often there will be priests from the god of combat and eternal blazing sun secretly coming over. Bayam isn't that calm after all. After leaving the kingdom and coming to the sea, Klein finally understood what it meant to be in an international situation. This wasn't something that can be compared to reading about the wars in East Poland for the papers. He nodded slightly and didn't object to visiting the local faction. After leaving the Wind of Azure Inn, Klein followed the Nits, whose face was painted black. They went through the streets, heading all the way southwest. Leaving the confines of the City of Generosity, they entered a zone filled with different architectural styles. The buildings here had raised floors, propped up the wooden pillages. There were 3 or 4 stories building that evolved from the Lowen-style terrace houses. The roads that split from each other were narrow and dirty, with many stalls on each other's side. They sold all kinds of headgears, earrings, and accessories made of stone. They were mostly bright red or multicolored. What a bunch of strange fellows! They especially like bright colors, just like those venomous snakes in the forest. The Nits whispered, "As someone from Intis, you aren't much better either. You advocate the color of gold and advocate a sense of luxury and exquisiteness, just like a novia what? This arc starts out. It doesn't have the. Oh, is that actually what the Nits did? I think I just read without reading. Did he actually do that? What a bunch of strange fellows. They especially like bright colors, just like those venomous snakes in the forest, the Nits whispered. As someone from Intis, you aren't much better than me. You advocate the color of gold and advocate a sense of luxury and exquisiteness, just like the Novia Rishi. Klein lampoon. They passed by a group of dark. Really? He did? I thought they painted their whole body. I wonder how they're going to animate that without it being sham. Well, I feel like, I don't know. It's definitely going to be a conversation when this gets animated. Yeah. In the rest of the world. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's different. No, maybe, no. I mean, who am I to say? I don't know. Clan Lampoon, they passed by. Well, I mean, point is, that's still a bad thing to do. But I mean, we'll see what's going to happen when this gets animated. We'll see. They passed by a group of dark-skinned, skinny, and shriveled natives entering the alley, which had clothes drying over their heads. The scene before their eyes suddenly opened up, revealing a small municipal square. On the square, a group of locals was gathered around the center pond. Some were kneeling, some were prostrating, and some were mumbling, and some were singing softly. They had devout expressions, but they looked numbed. All the windows on the second and third, fourth floors of the surrounding houses clanged shut, and the square grew quiet. And Klein's spiritual perception told him that there were many people behind the windows, around the alleys, and the dark corners, watching these strangers who suddenly arrived in view. The Nits lowered his head and said in a suppressed voice, "Don't worry, there is another way of protecting himself." Oh, Klein expressed his doubts. The Nits let out a chuckle. Before this place was completely colonized, the natives of the Roasted Archipelago always believed in the sea god Calvetua. They believed that this deity, who appeared from the gigantic sea serpent, would protect all the islands here, preventing them from being devoured by earthquakes or tsunamis. Now that this belief has been outlawed by the Church of Lords of Storms, have been constantly fighting against the heretics. Even the Church of Evernight and the Church of Steam Machinery aren't able to expand their influence here, and there are only a few cathedrals. But in fact, how can faith that has been in place for centuries, if not a millennium, be so easily eradicated? There are still plenty of believers of the Sea of God in Bayam, Blue Mountain Island, and the Roasted Sea. Even if a bunch of people are captured every 1 to 2 months, a situation which they suffer all kinds of extreme punishment, it's impossible to reverse the situation at any time. The resistance main pillars of support of the believers of God. In my opinion, it will take at least another 100 years before the faith of Sea God will be completely eradicated. Of course, that's under the premise that there aren't any other destructive elements. Sea god Calvetua. Its images is of a gigantic sea serpent. Ouroboros? Giant snake? Sea serpent? As Klein listened thoughtfully, he followed. You know what this reminds me of? the giant serpent in Xenoblade 2. I don't know if you guys have played it. Like the one protecting the world tree, the giant sea serpent. As Klein listened thoughtfully, he followed the net. And you know what's funny? It kind of looks like an abyss where it's coming out from. That's funny. As Klein listened thoughtfully, he followed the Nits into a 4-story house on the right. He went to the top floor via a narrow staircase. Knock, knock, knock. The Nits knocked on the door to his left. Who is it? Someone asked in a low voice. The Nits replied with a chuckle. A friend who brings wine and barbecue. Where from? The person inside asked a strange question. The Nits. Oh my, I can't even read his name. The Nits stepped back at sea. Creak. The door slowly opened and Klein saw a naked arm. The arm was tattooed with a blue, hideous sea serpent. Okay, so that guy's definitely a believer. All right, next chapter. Chapter 537 is called Excessive Spiritual Perception. Behind the door was a bare-chested man with a hideous blue sea serpent tattooed on his arm and short streaks of red paint painted on the sides of his cheeks, chest, and abdomen, each group formed out of 3 streaks. 3 what? 3 streaks. Really exotic. However, aren't you afraid of being too conspicuous? Aren't you afraid of being caught by the police while you're outside? I feel like we should, right? You're part of the resistance that engaged in the secret operations. Klein was about to retract his gaze when he was almost forced to frown by the man's thick, messy eyes and cold-blooded eyes. He had killed many people. Klein made a rough judgment based on his spiritual intuition. Definitely a new addition to Creeping Hunger. Honestly speaking, due to his previous identity and knowledge, he initially held a lot of sympathy for the rebels under the colonial rule, having no sense of belonging as the Loaness. However, after hearing that this man and followers of the sea god Calventua basically engaged in the same acts, he became even more worried and repulsed. This wasn't to say that he discriminated against the local faith, but rather he understood the traditional faith of all the colonial islands was still in a primitive stage that believed in sacrifice. They worshipped with blood using living sacrifices and were still in a state of complete ignorance. In addition, with the experience of the Emperor and myself, the beyonder nature of this world is filled with madness and twistedness. A deity is still a primitive stage of sacrifice, is basically unable to resist this trend. It's quite obvious what kind of style they follow. Without a word, Klein followed the Nits into the room. Edmonton, who's here? A mild voice sounded from the area near the windows. The tattooed man closed the door and said, Dave disguised themselves. At that moment, Klein had taken a good look at the situation in the room and gained a basic understanding of it. The living room wasn't very large. A cupboard, a table, and a few chairs were enough to make it look cramped. To the right were 2 doors leading to what appeared to be a bedroom. To the left was a kitchen separated by a cabinet. As for the washroom, there was no doubt that there wasn't one. When Klein went upstairs, he discovered that there was a common washroom at the corner of each flight of stairs. The stretch of them not being washed for extended periods of time urged and passerby to walk up fast. Directly in front of him was a window. 2 bamboo poles hung out and were used to hang a lot of clothes to dry. I almost read that wrong. There were 4 or 5 men sitting or standing in the bedrooms, doorway, and the living room. All of them were dark-skinned natives with slightly curly hair. They wore dark blue Tarabab shirts and more or less had red paint on their bare skin. And as for the sea serpent tattoo, Klein couldn't help if it was there or not because of clothing. Some of them had revolvers at their waist, some carrying brownish red hunting rifles. Some even carried gray steel backpacks and long, thick, high-pressure steam rifles. Steam rifles? Okay. They formed a semicircle around the Nits and Klein, who were just entering the room. The person who spoke was a wheelchair-bound man in his 40s. He wore a jacket and had a black blanket over his knees. He had a shaved head, a slightly green beard on... Green beard? Is this Zorro? Green beard on both sides of his face, and his dark brown eyes were calm and collected. He glanced at the visitor and slowly smiled. What do you say? Blazing! The Nits was stunned for a moment before he forced out a laugh. Kalat, you have a good eye. Dog shit, am I so bad at disguising myself? He roared inwardly, unwilling to accept the fact. Kalat ignored Blazing's insincere praise and instead chuckled. I heard that you killed Steel and Blood Brambles. How else would they be dead? The Nits retorted without hesitation. Kalat narrowed his eyes, slowly shifted his gaze to Klein, who had a featureless face. He knew very well that Blazing the Nits alone would have a hard time killing Blood Brambles, Hendry, much less Steel Mavetti. His success was rumored to be due to the help of a powerful adventurer, a seasoned bounty hunter. Is it possible the person beside him. When he looked into Klein's eyes, he didn't see any nervousness, wariness, or vigilance. Those eyes were like a deep ocean. It could very well be, at the very least, he's stronger than blazing. He signaled to the Edmonton at the others with his eyes, secretly informing them to be on their guard. What are you doing here? Kalat didn't pursue the subject. The Nit subconsciously looked at Klein, and after seeing his nod of affirmation, he replied, here to see what good things you have to offer. He's like, bet, what you got, bro? Kalat pointed to the table and said, it's all placed here. There were many strange and different items laid out. Hold up, let me lower the volume down a smidge for you guys. I lost my place. Without waiting for Klein the Nix to examine the items, Kalat clapped his hands and said, I have a mission. If you can complete it, you can freely choose an item from these at no additional cost. He left and added, by the definition of you foreigners, there aren't mystical objects, but they all have some supernatural power, but it will slowly, yes, slowly weaken until it disappears. What mission? Klein asked calmly and having no intention of hiding the fact that the Nitz was only a follower. He reached into the blanket that extended his knees and took out a stack of white paper. Find out where they are. If you can catch them directly, you will get even more. He raised his arms and began to display a lifelike portrait, including a lady with a greenish gray dress and a man's shirt. Oh, it's the archaeologist, right? Leticia Dolera. Klein recognized who the resistance was looking for at a glance. It was a female archaeologist and adventurer he had met last night at the boarded the same ship with this morning. She was suspected to be a member of the Moses ascetic order, or the Element Dawn. The Nitz looked at it closely for 2 seconds and found the picture vaguely familiar. Suddenly, he remembered where he had seen her before. German Sparrow had shown it in his dreams. He had just asked the captain about it in the afternoon, and were already bumping into something relevant in the evening. What a coincidence! Isn't he too resourceful at gathering information? The Nitz resisted his urge to glance at the crazy adventurer beside him, afraid that Kalat and Edmonton would notice something amiss. He was very experienced in this area. The resistance who believed in the sea god are looking for Leticia. The faith of the sea god spread through the Roasted Archipelago, including a seaman. There was a snake last night. The image of sea god is that of a gigantic sea serpent. Klein superimposed the two matters together and quickly came to a preliminary conclusion. Archaeologist Leticia and company had obtained an important item involving the sea god in the Forgotten Temple in the ancient forest of the Seaman Island, or Samine Island. Hence, it resulted in last night's probing and the resistance search. Klein thought for a moment and gave a perfection reply. I'll keep an eye out. I won't rambling get myself involved in matters related to evil spirits. Of course, if it's necessary, then I'll report it to officials. He suddenly added a few words inwardly. Klein nodded and said, take a look first and see if there's anything you want. Yeah, I found my place. Take a look first if there's anything you want. Klein walked over and was just about to inquire as he made his selection when he suddenly sensed something and subconsciously looked towards the right side of the item pile. There was a short sword made of thin bones. It was slightly longer, as I scrolled down too much. It was slightly longer than the forearm and had a milky white body. There were a few dark red deep stripes on it. It can trigger my spiritual perception. Klein stretched out his right hand in an attempt to pick up the sharp bone sword that was placed right at front, too carefully to examine it. The moment his fingers touched the bone, cries of despair and pain suddenly echoed in his mind. A thick stench of blood faintly appeared at the tip of his nose, and he seemed to see many distorted and rotten illusionary figures that were covered in mucus. Klein's forehead ached as though he had been pierced by a needle, and he subconsciously retracted his finger. A little sinister, it's not a simple item. Klein, who was experiencing things far more intense before, only shown a slight change in expression. He resisted the urge to activate his spirit vision, afraid that he would see something he shouldn't. Noticing this, Kalut exchanged glances with Edmonton and said with a smile, this bone sword is capable of draining an enemy's blood. It's not mad. Do you want it? A little proactive. Klein frowned, relaxed his brows immediately, and then he said in a deep voice, no, there's nothing I want here. If Kalat hadn't asked, he was even planning on buying the bone sword and researching it above the Grey Fog. However, the fact that the man promoted it had left him vigilant. Then he rationally abandoned his original plans. Kalat crossed his hands and said, it's not too expensive at all. Or would you like to look at something else? So he's like, the fact that he's offered it, it's like, maybe I shouldn't get it. I'm Team Blue. There's no need. Klein's people shrank. Team Blue, Team Gray. Grays rise up. Blues rise up. Greens rise up. Blue, yeah, look, now we got 3 teams in here, dude. There's no need. Klein's people shrank suddenly, and he turned and walked straight towards the door. The Nits hesitated momentarily before hurrying after him. Edmonton, who had a sea serpent tattoo on his arm, watched silently. He seemed as if he would reach out and stop them at any moment, but in the end, he didn't do anything. There were the powerful adventurers who had killed Steel Mavetti and Blood Bramble Sentry. Out of the room, Klein stomped down the stairs without saying a word. The Nits ran after him, alarmed. Based on his take of the situation, he didn't inquire about the situation and only followed. The two quickly returned to the square, and the crowd, which had gathered once again to either kneel or prostrate, scattered once more. But unlike before, there was a man who had still remained kneeling on the ground motionless. Klein didn't even glance at him and walked past without stopping. Who? However, the Nits had taken a subconscious look only to discover that the man's face was as dry as a weathered rock. Pa. A piece of flesh from the man's cheek fell to the ground. It was a piece of grayish skin with facial features attached to it. Ugh, what the fuck? He seemed to have lost all moisture in his body. The Nits was startled and didn't dare to look again. Feeling that things had become strange and dangerous at some point, the two of them passed through the alleys, left the city, and boarded a rental carriage. The carriage driver was obviously a native, around 40 years old, and his laughter was very pleasing. But along the way, he didn't say a word. It was so quiet that it made the Nits feel like his heart was beating like a drum. Klein pursed his lips and remained silent. The rental carriage quickly arrived at the dock area in order to change the tire. The Nits got it to stop at a distance from Acid Lemon Street. After getting off the carriage, Klein didn't pay the fare or stop. He merely took large strides and left, leaving the Nits stunned. He tossed two solely to the carriage driver and hurriedly chased after Gurman Sparrow. After a few steps, he looked back and saw the driver kneeling down with a face full of zeal and devoutness. He leaned over to the ground and kissed the ground where Klein had stepped. Let me read that part. After a few steps, he looked back and saw the driver kneeling down with a face full of zeal and devoutness. He leaned over on the ground and kissed the ground where Klein had stepped. Maybe we could do a music change. World is white? Yeah, we can do a world is white. That seemed but weird. Like, why would he kiss the ground where Klein had stepped? What does he know? Chapter 538 is called Dispel. What's happening? The Nits couldn't believe what he was saying. This didn't shock him, but it left him inexplicably terrified. It was like jumping into the bucket filled with an ice when drunk, feeling a bone-piercing chill permeate his body from the soles of his feet to his head. What exactly happened? Why did things become so strange? The Nits took a breath, forcing himself to turn his head and chased after Gurman Sparrow. He found the crazy adventurer walking faster and faster to the point where he had to run with small paces to keep up. Crossing the street and through the alley, the Nits suddenly saw a greenish shadow fall from a tree. Pa, its body was covered in scales as it twisted its slippery body and had a triangular head. It extended its scarlet forked tongue and was none other than a rather long, venomous snake. Ooh, the snakes are back. Okay, so it has to be her. Dogshit, why would there be snakes in this season? The Nits wasn't afraid of such creatures. He had roasted snake. He had even roasted snake meat before, but it was an abnormality of everything that left him agitated. Circling around the coiling snake, the Nits subconsciously looked left and right and found that on both sides of the gutter, in the corners of the ruined houses, on the inside of a rusty water pipes, there were pairs of cold, vertical, and different colored eyes looking out. The Nits felt a chill run down his spine as if his scalp had been pierced by a dense array of fine needles. He didn't dare to stay any longer, nor did he dare to leave. He increased his speed again and again and followed closely behind Gurman Sparrow. Entering the wind of Azure Inn, he couldn't help but look up as he walked up the wooden stairs, wanting to ask something. Suddenly, his chest tightened and his breathing staggered. At this moment, it was as if he had dived into the bottom of the sea, being pressed down by the heavy torrents of water from every direction. Okay, this is getting eerie. What's going on here? Within that ocean, there was an enormous azure blue figure holding everything up. The sea serpent? It resembled a tower. Serpent. The Ouroboros thing was like a white snake, right? Is there a correlation? Within the ocean, there was an enormous azure blue figure holding up everything. It resembled a tower. The Nit's right foot stopped in the middle air, unable to lower his foot. He wasn't unfamiliar with such feelings. Back at the last pirate convention, the king of the Five Seas Nast was even more imposing and terrifying than this. Almost all of the pirates couldn't lift their heads, and every powerhouse of the admiral rank could only barely resist. Cammy just wants a music monopoly. Cammy currently does have the music monopoly. What do you mean the whole Hollow Knight Expedition 33 isn't for me? That is true. That is true. Almost all the pirates couldn't lift their heads, and even powerhouses of admiral rank could only barely resist. The Nits knew very well that it was a result of German Sparrow's own powers. If he was at the level of a demigod, there was no need to include the mandated punishers during his hunt for Steel Mavetti. Ocean Tide. These terms flashed through Danit's mind, and he immediately thought of the matter of the resistance faith in the sea god's Calventua. Could it be that German Sparrow suffered the sea god's curse via an... Wait, what? Could it be that German Sparrow suffered the sea god's curse via an unknown process when he touched the bone sword? The devotees... Oh, the devotees... Oh, and that's why the guy kissed the floor. Right? Because he felt his presence. He felt the sea god's presence, and because they have that tattoo, they are believers, and that's why they kiss the ground. Because he realized, like, oh, client, yeah, change song now. It's hard nowadays. Gotta keep up the competition. These two terms, yes, or maybe he was just freaky. Maybe he was freaky, yes, but I think it's that. Could it be that German Sparrow suffered from the sea god's curse via an unknown process when he touched the bone sword? The devote's corpse that lost all its moisture is one of the conditions of the curse activation. When the carriage, yeah, because when you drink sea salt, you get dehydrated, you lose moisture. That makes sense. When the carriage driver prostrated and kissed the ground, was it because he sensed the sea god's aura? He felt German's aura and he felt his aura. Yeah, he probably felt German's aura. Man, German Sparrow would probably die here today should I stay far away and avoid being implicated. At the very most, I'll come back to collect his corpse. It might still be possible to save him. I can use the Soulfall ritual to seek Captain's help. She knows so many different kinds of old secret techniques. She should be able to resolve this problem. No, Lord, the Soulfall ritual has a requirement of being within 500 nautical miles. They're still en route, and it will take at least half a day to enter that range. As he desperately tried to think of something, Danit stopped panicking and treaded steadily into the luxurious suit with German Sparrow. Klein still remained silent, but his dark brown eyes seemed to have a rich azure blue color that was nearing the color of black. He went straight to the bedroom and locked the door behind him. Danit stood outside in a dilemma of whether he should flee or save the man. Inside the bedroom, Klein closed his eyes, waiting for the right opportunity. Suddenly, he took 4 steps in counterclockwise manner, chanting a statement with each step. Oh, this is good. This is getting good. A wave of manic or high-pitched ravings rapidly rung in his ears as his spirit body shot up into the gray fog. Without a sound, he heard an indescribable shrill and painful howl. Klein appeared within the ancient palace at the very end of a long modeled table. In the motionless gray fog below, an illusory, gigantic, azure blue sea serpent appeared. Ain't no way, so he sees him. It was located in an ancient dark ruin coiled around a half-collapsed pillar. Its hideous head was raised, and its bloody mouth was wide open, revealing many curved fangs that were even longer than a human's forearm. On its milky white fang, there were layers upon layers of flowing blood and mucus. The sea serpent madly swung its tail, setting off terrifying waves of ridiculous ripples, causing the entire ruins to sway as if it was about to collapse. The scene rapidly shattered and dim, regardless of how the unimaginably large sea serpent struggled. It was unable to turn the situation around. All it could do was let out a long, painful scream in agony as it was reduced to points of light before disappearing into the gray fog. Klein sat in the high-back chair belonging to the fool as he quietly watched everything. He didn't make any superfluous actions for a long time. The gray fog silently spread out, and the scene seemed to return to its eternally unchanged state. After nearly a minute, Klein leaned back in his chair, sighed, and said to the serpent's name, Sea God Calvetua. After coming into contact with the bone sword, he had already felt the abnormality, and during his conversation, so like that's why he didn't need to buy the sword. He's like, he already made a connection, so he doesn't need to buy the sword anymore. Okay. After coming into contact with the bone sword, he had already felt the abnormality, and during his conversation with Baldi Kalat, he had immediately discovered that a tiny, weak, but extremely cold and sinister energy had invaded his body. At some point in this time, it was slowly corrupting his soul. Klein made a prompt decision and turned around to leave. He then sensed that there was a connection between the sinister power and his surroundings. It gradually strengthened and slowly connected to an unknown place. So as he diverted attention to resist the corruption, he also controlled himself so as to not interact with his surroundings. Klein believed that as long as he responded to abnormality on his journey back, it would only serve to intensify the corruption to the point of making irreversible. At first, he wanted to find a nearby washroom and use the Grey Fog's shielding and isolate to remove the cold and sinister power, but after repeating considerations, he decided to leave the area. This was because there were many followers of the sea god around, and it was extremely likely for an accident to happen. During this process, Klein grasped another point with all that if he dispelled it ahead of time, the power projected by the sea god Calvatua would leave remnants in his flesh and blood. The consequences and effect would be unknown. He had no choice but to patiently wait for the opportunity to purify himself by waiting for the cold and sinister energy to thoroughly permeate his spirit. Reflecting on everything that had happened, Klein lightly rapped the edge of the table and muttered to himself, "It's not that strong. The sea god isn't that strong." The sea god's level was much lower. The sea god's level was much lower than he imagined. He's like, I've been through worse. His original plan was to use the method that he had finished off Amon's avatar to deal with the sea god, like what, his angel? Finish off Amon's avatar to deal with the sea god Calvatua's projection, which was trying to take over his body. However, even if he had even fused with the Black Emperor card or through his paper angel, Calvatua ended up being dispelled by the Grey Fog directly without leaving a single trace. On this basis, Klein concluded that the sea god Galvatua level was inferior to the Blasphemer Amon, even though it was possible that the latter was more adept at intrusion, but it had only been an avatar. Was it thrown off its pedestal by the Lord of Storms, or is it not even at the level of an angel? It's just a slightly stronger demigod that can respond to the prayers of its believers within a certain range. Klein recalled and found that the sea god Calvatua was in a normal state. The foundational existence of this evil spirit is rather weak, as though it can collapse at any moment. Moreover, it felt like it had fused with the spirit world and the ruins it was in, and it's precisely as a result of this that it was able to escape the encirclement of the Church of Storms. That is really deep thinking. Klein leaned back in his chair and made a guess. What happened today is definitely not a coincidence in Volume 3, okay? What happened today is definitely not a coincidence. It stems from the archaeologist Leticia's act of taking away important artifacts in the Forgotten Temple. It caused sea god Calvatua's condition to instantly deteriorate when it was already barely surviving. It made it impossible for it to hold on to its existence. As it got its believers to track the item, it also prepared to possess another body for its survival. That bone sword should have originated from its demigod body, and that bone sword should have originated from its that bone sword was part of its original body, okay? And it hides a bit of power it projects. As long as the target is suitable, it will infiltrate the body of the person who touches it, corrupting the soul and establishing the coordinates. It would then allow its spirit to be transferred over before it dissipates. Damn. I don't know, Cammy. I think we're still good for like another hour. Or maybe we end in the next chapter too. I don't know. I think we can finish at... I think we can read this chapter and one more chapter. And then that way we start next time at 5:40. I think we can do that. We can do one more and then we start the next chapter at 5:40. Or the next read through goes at 5:40. According to this... Wait, I lost my place. But clearly, it's not adept in such matters. Yes, it's not the Snake of Mercury. It's unable to create a closed loop on itself for reincarnation. It's also not like Blasphemer Amon, who can be a parasite inside a person's soul. To really possess my body, it will directly cause its body to crumble and create a terrifying monster. According to this logical development, the dying Calvetta will likely engage in many crazy actions in the near future. Klein frowned. He didn't hesitate as he plummeted into the fog and returned to the real world. He unlocked the door, opened it, and entered the living room, startling the pacing Danitz. Danitz looked him up and down a few times and asked cautiously and warily, "Are you alright?" Klein maintained Gurman's persona and calmly replied, "It's settled." Settled. Danitz looked around before glancing at the bedroom, wondering if he had been hallucinating, that there wasn't any sea god curse. Who did he do in his bedroom? He was lifted from the curse of the sea god in just a minute or two. Man, this guy has a huge secret. Danitz took 2 steps back and made way. Like, he must have a really big secret. Well, today's 3 hours? Yeah, it has been 3 hours, huh? Besides a table covered with a significant number of miscellaneous items, the wheelchair-bound Baldy Kalat wore a look of regret, and he said to the tattooed man, "What a pity." Just a little more. He didn't pick it up. He touched it. Edmonton sighed as well. Kalat looked at the slightly bent bone sword and feverishly said to himself, "When an outsider picks up the holy sword, God will walk the land again." Edmonton fell to his knees as well, as though confessing to a deity. As time passed, both Kalat and Edmonton suddenly heard two miserable shrieks. They looked up and saw the two of their companions had collapsed. So that, like, they couldn't bear it. Their skin was like a weathered rock, having lost all their moisture in their bodies. You know what? This kind of reminds me of the theory Klein came up with a mon can, like, sap their life force and then they, like, wither and die. It kind of looks like that, right? Their skin was like a weather, like it saps their moisture. Having lost all the moisture in their body, Kalat and Edmonton glanced at each other and felt a peculiar atmosphere. Both of them stood up at the same time and looked at the table. That milky white holy sword cracked loudly, splinting into countless small pieces. Oh, it shattered. It shattered? Alright, I think we're gonna end it there. Wait, hold up. Overall thoughts is 2 hours and 18 minutes. Today's stream was pretty goated. Chat. We got through like, how many chapters? We got through like 10, 11 chapters. Now, the one thing I do want to know, is there any fan art on Edwards? Hell, I know, dude. I know you were saying to stream more or like stream earlier. I know, I'm so sorry, dude. Hello, Mr. Loki. I know, well, look, hold up. We're doing the video outro. So we're going to be live still for a few more minutes. If you like what you see there and you want to see more, sorry if the video seems like it just abruptly ended. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, yeah, no, I don't have any plans for Memorial Day weekend, so hopefully we go live tomorrow and Sunday. And I will see you guys very soon. Okay. EDWINA does have art. Oh yes, if there's any fan art, let's look at EDWINA artwork, because she already sounds like a pretty badass character. And I want to see more. I want to see if later on she's like, ooh, Cleansa. Or no, I want to see if later on German Sparrow's like, oh, German Sparrow's such a mysterious, cool guy. Like, he's so well educated. He graduated from university. He knows so much about mysticism. He's like, I want him on my team. Ew, some more mature art. Even, oh, ew, not ew. Even some more mature art. Oh, really? Well, let's look at everything right now. If you guys have any artwork on Discord, we'll take a look at it right now. We're going to leave it there. Peace. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you guys very soon. All right, later, guys.